through northwest Arkansas right now. Let's take a look at what we got right now. That first severe thunderstorm warning issued. Again, if you're with us earlier this evening, we told you about the severe thunderstorm watch that goes out until 10 p.m. Now we have our first warning across northwest Arkansas. We're going to go ahead and take a look at what we should expect the rest of this evening. Coming up in here just a bit, we're going to go ahead and send out our mobile alerts so that we can try to alert as many people as possible as these thunderstorms are right on our doorstep coming through over the next couple of hours. So far, we've been watching some thunderstorms pop up across the Little Rock metro. And those have since kind of faded away, now had some warnings earlier on into the evening. Now we have our first warning into 5 Country, producing some of those stronger winds and also the potential of seeing some hail. That's going to be our main threat throughout the rest of the watch that goes out until 10 p.m. this evening. That was issued a few hours ago by the National Weather Service. All right, now that we have that mobile alert pushed out, let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. From this warning. This warning is going to go out across northwest Arkansas, portions of Benton, Washington County, Madison County until 6:45 p.m. This is for 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and nickel-size hail. So it's right on the line of being that severe thunderstorm warning. We need those wind gusts to peak up near 60 miles per hour to issue that warning, and this is our first one of the night so far. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at what we should expect. Lots of lightning being produced in the area as well. Again, that warning is going out until 6:45. But for the most part, we're going to be seeing a lot of these warnings pop up in the sense of producing those stronger winds and also seeing some of that hail as well. All right, now let's take it to this. All right, so a lot of lightning being produced in and around northwest Arkansas right now. Just south of Bentonville is where the frequent lightning is going to be. You see Rogers there, Lowell, Springdale, and that's where we're seeing the heaviest rainfall coming down right now. Let's take it to now. Stop that movement right there, and we'll show you velocity. Starting to see some of those brighter colors start to return right now. Those are some strong winds producing probably 40, 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts. That's coming right through the Springdale area, soon to be, where we see those brightest colors in between Highfill and Lowell. Anywhere where you're seeing kind of those lime green, almost white colored shading is those strongest winds. But if we take a look at our hail tracker, we'll get a good sense of seeing any hail coming down. Anything where you see that light blue to dark blue coming down is anywhere between nickel up to quarter-size hail. This warning was issued for that nickel-size hail, excuse me. So those dark blue returns is probably where we're seeing the heaviest, the largest hail cores start to come down. Looks like just south of Rogers, just south of Decatur, just south of Bentonville. So if you're in the Springdale area, further down the line into the Fayetteville area, Prairie Grove, that's where we could see some of that hail starting to come back as well. Let's go back to our sweeping radar and show you where the brunt of this system is going to be. All right, so there's that information right there for you. All right, anywhere from Eureka Springs down to Springdale, Fayetteville, Siloam Springs, starting to see some of that rain coming down. Again, we have that watch going out until 10 p.m. this evening. If we start to run this into a 15-minute loop here, we'll start to see that. I'm actually going to back that up, and we'll do an hour loop. Coming out of southern Missouri into northeastern Kansas, had some of those thunderstorms starting to pop up, and as we've gone over the past past hour or so, we've started to see these thunderstorms really start to blow up as they entered into northwest Arkansas. So as we can expect this trend to continue down that path, that's where we're going to see the potential of some of those strong damaging winds, the potential for some of that hail as well. Can't rule out as one of the other issues that we could run into tonight is some of the lightning in the area as well. If you remember from Friday night, we had some of those really strong storms coming through NWA Soar. We had some strong storms coming through portions of northwest Arkansas all the way down to Crawford County. Parts of the River Valley had some of those flooding issues in those low-lying areas as well. This is a similar layout for this evening, where our main concerns are going to be the potential of those strong winds, 60 up to 70 miles per hour, and those quarter-size hailstones. The tornado risk for tonight is so low, almost zero for this evening. I think our main concerns that we'll run into is those strong winds. Good news is very isolated cell right now, but they are updating that warning. I want to take a closer look at that just to make sure they're not updating, and they are updating that to 70 miles per hour now. So we've grown from 60 mile an hour wind gusts up to potentially 70 mile an hour winds. If we zoom in really close here, we'll show you exactly where those strongest winds are going to be. Springdale area, we're going to see some of those strongest winds coming through right now, up to 60, 70 mile an hour winds. Fayetteville down the line, Goshen down to Hinesville. This is where that straight line wind is going to come into a factor with this isolated cell. If we run this over the past 15 minutes, you can kind of see how it's not necessarily expanded, but it's picked up in that energy. I'll slow it down here for you. We had some stronger winds near Lowell, moving into the Springdale area, but eventually really starting to see some of those brighter returns coming down, and that's why they've gone ahead and reissued that warning for up to 70 mile an hour wind. So 6:13 here right now. Got another 30 minutes of this warning, and since it's picking up in intensity, I won't be surprised if we start to see more warnings popping up as we go on throughout the rest of this evening. The good news is all these storms are being popped up ahead of this frontal boundary. We've got a cold front coming down, so by the time we get into tomorrow morning, you'll really start to notice a difference, and tomorrow afternoon, you'll definitely notice a difference when it comes to the temperature outside. Going to feel a whole lot cooler throughout the rest of this week. We just got to get through the rest of this evening with these strong storms starting to populate. Let's take a look across. Let's take a look at our sweeping real quick, and we'll go ahead and loop this. So you've seen that expand over the past hour or so. Had a little bit of outflow boundary moving through portions of eastern Oklahoma, and now this supercell is really starting to come together now. Again, the cells that were moving through portions of the Little Rock Metro, they produced some really strong winds, some hail cores as well. This is that similar situation, just trailing a little bit further behind now. And now we're going to be seeing, if anything, down the line across the river valley eventually later on this evening, we could start to see some of those stronger storms popping up as well. I want to go ahead and show you, or we'll take a step away from radar real quick and show you that watch, everything shaded in pink here. That's that severe thunderstorm watch. That's going to go out until 10 p.m. this evening. All of northwest Arkansas outside of Carroll County, all of the river valley as well outside of eastern Oklahoma. Going back to sweeping radar here, again, this warning going out till 6:45. That's going to be for Benton, Washington, and Madison counties. Our main concern right now, even though we do have some of those hail returns starting to come back, if we pull up our hail tracker, see the hail tracker. Starting to see some of those blue returns coming back. Those are some larger hailstones, anywhere between nickel to quarter size hail. I'm going to go ahead and pause that so we can get an exact location of where the hail is coming down. If you live in Fayetteville, prepare for some of those nickel size hailstones coming down. Springdale, smaller size hail cores, anywhere between penny up to that nickel size. Had some larger hail come down in the Lowell area just south of Rogers, and had some of those larger hailstones come down in the Hinesville area, probably in and around the airport. Had some of the largest hail come down. Our main concern now, though, is going to be those strong winds. We had some really bad wind damage come through the other night on Friday evening across northwest Arkansas, the river valley. You've been hearing us talk about it the past several days. Unfortunately, very similar situation, same type of warning even, where it's just that severe thunderstorm warning, but just the baseline for that warning is 60 miles per hour. They're going ahead and upgrading that to that 70 mile an hour range. If we go ahead and look at that wind that's coming in right now, 6:45, probably measuring anywhere between 50 to 60 miles per hour. We could see those wind gusts get even stronger, though, and up to that 70 mile an hour range. So those strongest winds, and if we haven't mentioned it yet, don't worry. The very isolated cells, we'll go ahead and take a tour here in a second. Strongest winds are going to be right along that leading edge. So just north of Fayetteville is where we're going to see those strongest winds, where you see that white, almost teal color. Just south of 412. Springdale starting to see some of those stronger wind returns as well. So Fayetteville, Goshen, Greenland, Elkins, Prairie Grove. You got some time, but not a lot of time before those damaging winds are at your doorstep. Let's go ahead and track this out. This is moving south, southeast at, I want to get the exact time here. Let's see here. This is moving 45 miles an hour, so a pretty quick moving system. And we get some times pulled up here. All right, there's that times pulled up. So Farmington at 6:20, Fayetteville at 6:20, Prairie Grove 6:24, Greenland 6:26, down to Elkins close to 6:30, West Fork 6:33. And finally reaching down to Japton at 6:39. So again, you've got some time here. If you see your cities listed there on the left side of your screen, obviously sitting right now at 6:18. Fayetteville probably starting to get windy right now. It's going to pick up significantly stronger wind gusts here in just a few minutes, where we start to see those brighter returns starting to come back, as we'll see those wind gusts peaking up around 40, 50, 60 mile per hour range. But wind is definitely our main concern right now, outside of the hail cores coming down as well. That's what happens during these summer systems that we get, where it pulses up very quickly because it's so muggy outside, so hot outside, that these supercells just explode, producing really strong winds, can produce some of that hail. Hopefully not a very long-lasting system, though. We start to see some signs of weakening, and we may be trending towards the right direction. But this is right where this supercell is really starting to explode, and that's where we can get some of those damaging winds. More than likely going to see some of those power outages moving into Washington County. Might have some power outages in Benton County already. And unfortunately, this is just coming on the heels of where we had those strong storms moving through just the other night. We are keeping an eye on our live streaming platforms, people commenting, telling us what's going on out there. You guys are our eyes and ears, also seeing what's going on out there, power outages. Hopefully everything, we have phones charged up this evening, because we are way too familiar with those widespread power outages. Can take a little bit to get that power restored. Let's go ahead and take a look back at sweeping radar, and I want to go ahead and draw out the same timeline so we can. So here's a wide look across Northwest Arkansas River Valley. Been quiet so far across the river valley. If we see the same start to take that track, just moving directly south down the line, Crawford County, Franklin County, Johnson County, Logan County, you've got ample time right now. But if this is anything to say of what's the rest of the night is going to be like, could see some of those stronger storms popping up as well. I don't think we'll have any of those cells popping up south of what we have right now. So this cell is going to be that leading storm throughout the rest of this evening, if it survives that long, as we get closer towards the river valley. Back across Northwest Arkansas, I wanted to show you guys the timing of the rain and everything. This was moving at 45. So we draw that out right along that warning polygon. Fayetteville at 6:22, that is within the minute now. Prairie Grove 6:23, Greenland at 6:27. Elkins, you guys probably have enough time to get some things moved around outside, some patio furniture. We do have some hail cores that we'll take a look at here in a second, but if you want to try to move that car inside, try to avoid some hail damage, 6:33 is the latest timing for Elkins. Asher 6:42, Winslow 6:43, Crosses at 6:46, St. Paul at 6:54, and Mountainburg closer towards 7 o'clock, so definitely ample time towards the southern end of this cell. Again, even though this warning polygon is pretty large, the system is moving very quickly. This is moving at 45 miles per hour towards the southeast. Slower moving systems, of course, we have a little bit more time to get things moved around before that thunderstorm gets there. Fast cells like these, they can pick up in speed and they can start moving very quickly. That's when we start to see some of those stronger wind returns as well. And that's what I want to take a look at first. I know I just said that we'll take a look at the hail. If that starts upticking, then we'll definitely go back to it. But I think those straight line winds where you see that definite line coming right along that leading edge is where we're going to have the most damage reports coming out of. We zoom in here. Lincoln through Huntsville is where those strongest winds are coming through right now. Springdale, you just had some very strong winds come through. I think for the most part, though, starting to come down just a bit. Right through Fayetteville is where my main concern is going to be now for those wind gusts to have the greatest potential of anywhere between 60 up to 70 miles per hour. And of course, this is coming right down I-49, 632 here. More than likely have a lot of people out on the roads right now. I'm taking a step away and pulling up some of our RDOT cameras that we can pull up here in a second. This is going to be, and we'll take a look at what that warning is, the timing of this. And that is the wrong location. Obviously, you know what that camera is. That is looking at Weddington right now to give you a good look of what's going on outside. See a lot of those hazard lights going on, people taking it slow. That's the right thing to do in these situations. This is an absolute downpour going on near Weddington, where those strongest winds are going to be and the heaviest amount of that rainfall. A lot of people getting caught right now with this pop-up thunderstorm. Popping up, moving right over 49. All right, let's take another look at, I know that we just got that update. Whenever you start to see that blinking, flashing polygon, that's when we're starting to get an update from that system. Latest information on that. Hopefully they're just trimming it down, and that's exactly what they're doing. You see they cut down just to Springdale, further south, not touching that wind just yet, but still 70 miles per hour is going to cause some of that damage. All right, let's take another look at hail cores. That's what we were talking about. Yeah, starting to see some really large hail cores coming down as well. Unfortunately, I'm keeping a really close eye on our RDOT cameras on 49. That largest cell that you see right there, let me go ahead and pause it so you guys aren't looking at that hour loop. That largest hail core return that you see right there, where you see the dark purple starting to show up, that is going to be moving right over I-49 near Fayetteville. Unfortunately, starting to see a lot of traffic buildup, slowdowns on I-49. As expected, Stephen Carr Boulevard not looking too bad right now. MLK starting to see some backup as well. That hail is going to move right over I-49 in between Fayetteville and West Fork. And whenever we start to see those purple returns starting to come back, that's going to be some very large hail. Farmington, Greenland, West Fork, Prairie Grove, Elkins, Fayetteville, definitely. This is what I'm looking at right here. I know we're getting super close right now. I'm actually going to get even closer to start to see if we can see some roads starting to pop up. This is going to be right along Wheeler Road. I want to get very close here. Double Springs Road. Because whenever we start to see these purple returns coming back, this is more than likely larger than quarters. Quarters is about the size that we say, hey, this is going to be some damaging hail. When we start to see these type of returns coming back, that's when we're going to say this is some significant hail that the radar is trying to pick up. So if you start to see your roads popping up there, that's where that largest hail core is going to be moving through, right across I-49 in between Fayetteville and Greenland. And this is going to get really close to the campus. Parents tuning in, just dropped off the kids last week, 2 weeks ago. Got a really strong thunderstorm moving through right now. Our main concern with the warning is going to be the strong straight line winds up to 70 miles per hour. In the immediate zone of the hail, with Fayetteville coming right through the campus, this is some large hail coming right over Razorback Stadium. That next slide, I imagine, will more than likely see that hail core moving right over Fayetteville. So let's take a step back out, Look at velocity once again. Anywhere where you see these really bright returns, Prairie Grove over to Greenland, Fayetteville right now seeing some of the strongest winds, over to Goshen, Huntsville down the line, you're going to see some of these stronger winds. Elkins, mentioned it earlier, you had some time to move some things around, some outdoor furniture, try to get the car inside. That time is running out now. As this system, again, usually slower moving systems, we can have a little bit of time, get some things around, but when this cell is moving at 45 miles per hour, you don't have much time to get things organized. Let's go ahead and pull up that tracker again and get an update on the latest timing for folks who are going to be caught outside on 49. Hawkeye at 6:30. That is 2 minutes out now. Elkins at 6:33. West Fork 6:33. Chester at 6:53. Winslow 6:45. So you see those times there. That's that up to date and moving at 45 miles per hour. Fast moving system producing some really strong winds in and around the Fayetteville area. Greenland down the line here is actually Greenland. That latest scan showing that leading edge has now moved south of Fayetteville, but those strong damaging winds are coming in right now. So out of time in Greenland, West Fork, minute, 2 minutes, that's when that leading edge could be right on top of you, and Elkins as well. I want to keep an eye not only on the winds, but also that hail core as well. Good news, let's go ahead and pause this. That latest scan not giving the best information if you're tuning in for Fayetteville. That light blue is more than likely anything between nickels up to quarter size. What I'm keeping my eye on is that deep purple. If that starts to make its way into Fayetteville, Farmington, that's where we could run into some issues if we start to see hail becoming one of our largest concerns. Let's pull up velocity once again. The good news is that if we take a look DMA wide and we'll pull up the rain once again, our sweeping radar, this is our only cell right now, but it is out there alone right now. It's producing some really strong winds, some damaging winds. That hail right now, you're sitting in the river valley right now wondering what my evening is going to look like throughout the rest of the night tonight. Right now, this is our only cell that we have. That doesn't mean that we can't see more cells start to pop up throughout the rest of this evening, but if this thing has nothing in front of it to stop it, to slow it down, this thing could just keep on trugging right down I-49 before eventually reaching into the river valley. 5 News Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert is in the studio now, and he's going to go ahead and start to take things over for you.
Stephen, excellent job tracking these thunderstorms moving into the area. This is primarily a damaging wind threat for many of us. We're talking 70-mile-per-hour winds. That's what the warning itself has been issued for. In addition to, as Stephen's been tracking, that hail core. And we're looking at some pretty large hail. Let's go ahead and do some analysis here, get an idea of what the storm is doing at this moment. We can take a look at radar level winds, and what that's going to allow us to do is see at the radar beam how fast are those winds blowing. And right now we're measuring 65-mile-per-hour winds. 66 perhaps. That's on the south side of Fayetteville, continuing to push off towards the south and east. That's the winds. Let's take a look at the actual hail, and you can see it has bubbled up. We are seeing some large hailstones falling out of that storm right now. The largest of hailstones, we'll go in tighter here, get an idea of exactly who's going to be impacted, likely crossing State Highway 62 just outside of Prairie Grove. On this current trajectory, that largest hail core probably does move through Greenland, okay? How big are these hailstones? We'll take a look at the highest, about 1.5 inches. We're talking ping pong size hail. Now, one of the things that happened a couple of days ago was radar was detecting some larger hailstones. And then what happened, because it was so hot, a lot of it melted before it hit the surface. Sometimes entirely, in other cases not so much. I've already gotten numerous reports from folks in and around Northwest Arkansas this afternoon, this evening, that some of those hailstones are actually making it to the ground just at a little bit smaller of a size. We hope that trend continues, but certainly this storm capable of producing, in addition to the 70-mile-per-hour winds, the large ping pong size hail as well. So right now, heavy rains continue in Greenland, Prairie Grove, West Fork. It is very windy. We just measured at the Springdale Airport a 59-mile-per-hour gust. We're definitely looking at severe damaging winds with this Pacific system. We'll take a broader perspective. Benton County, for the time being, you are in the clear. This warning does include a good chunk of Madison County. Huntsville's not in the warning per se. Hinesville, well, the east side of town is not, but the west side, especially along 45 between Goshen and Hinesville, you in fact are included in this severe thunderstorm warning. Heads up Elkins, Durham, Winslow. Storms moving your direction right now. This storm, Stephen, help me out, is moving, how quick is this storm moving? 45 miles per hour, maintaining itself there at 45 miles per hour. At that rate, what we can do is put a storm track on this and give you a general idea of when this storm is going to be passing through your area. And that puts it in West Fork at 6:35. Time now is 6:33. So West Fork, we got about 2 minutes to go. Winslow 6:48, Combe 6:53. How about 6:56 for St. Paul? Right around 7 o'clock for Chester. Not too much longer after that. We'll expect those leading edge is the leading edge of the storm to be pushing into Mountainburg. Barnes Community 7:09, and again, that's assuming this storm does not slow down or speed up. 70-mile-per-hour winds, that's our primary concern, followed by the hail potential with this Pacific storm. We do have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for a large majority of the area, and you can see that does include pretty much all of western Arkansas, and that's going to be running for the next few hours. In fact, it looks like that is going to be in effect until 10 o'clock this evening for all of us, with the exception being eastern Oklahoma and Carroll County, not currently included in a watch there. If you're just not tuning in, time now is 6:34. I'm meteorologist Scott Covert alongside Stephen Elmore. We're tracking one severe thunderstorm, but it's certainly severe and living up to every aspect of that. 70-mile-per-hour winds coming out of this storm. We've measured some winds near that out of this on the backside of the system, really, out of Springdale. In addition to the winds, you've got heavy rain, a little bit of flash flooding already ongoing out there this evening. So if you live in one of those low-lying areas, this is a very efficient rainmaker, and that's where we start to see those flooding waters really kick up. So insult to injury, if you will. Let's take a look at the hail. Maybe it's come down with some of the latest scans. We'll go back in tighter. This was getting ready to move really close to Prairie Grove before eventually moving towards West Fork. Definitely on the west side of Fayetteville, probably getting some hail there. Largest of hail core there, you can see those darker blues. And radar estimates that right now along Highway 62, we're looking at 1 inch in diameter hail. 1 inch is the size of a quarter, just for a little bit of context there. And it does look like Prairie Grove is probably going to see some of those hailstones likely happening right now. Oftentimes the radar data is just a few minutes behind, especially with some of these products that it has to really do some analysis on. So that would tell me that we probably got some hail starting to mix in Hog-Eye, in West Fork, Greenland as well. Worst of the storm is probably passed through Fayetteville at this point, but the heavy rain is going to continue for Farmington, Fayetteville, and even parts of Springdale. I'll turn on rain mode. You can get a general idea of where that's at. Springdale looks like things are starting to quiet down. You're on the backside now. Winslow, expect those winds to really pick up here in the next few minutes. Right now, what we'll do is we'll put this on a 15-minute loop. And as this loops, this is going to give you a general idea of the trajectory of the system and how quick it's moving. And latest data suggests 45 miles per hour right off towards the south and east. This has prompted a severe thunderstorm warning. And while we're waiting on new data, let me just give you some insight. There used to be one type of severe thunderstorm warning. A couple of years ago, the Weather Service actually added 3 different types of severe thunderstorm warning. There's a standard old basic warning. You can be upgraded to considerable thunderstorm warning, and then there's a destructive severe thunderstorm warning. That's the worst, right? Right now we're in the middle. This is not your garden variety severe thunderstorm that we often see in the summer months. It's got the considerable tag on it, and that's because of the winds. Maximum wind gust up to about 70 miles per hour possible coming out of the storm. Looking at some of the wind velocities, radar certainly suggests that very well could be the case. Although with this latest scan, it does look like maybe they've come down just a bit. At least it's not as pronounced as it once was. Probably get some pretty strong strong winds right now coming out near Sulphur City, Hicks Community. Let's see what radar says. This bright pixel right here, about 50 miles per hour. So maybe that's coming down a bit. West Fork looks like perhaps we've got winds 40 to 50. So some perhaps good news. Again, it's radar estimates at the radar level. That doesn't necessarily mean it's any slower at the surface level, but it's a trend that I hope we can see continue over the next few minutes. Cannon Creek, you're up next. That leading edge of the storm likely going to be moving into your neck of the woods before moving into Brentwood. Winslow. Winds are probably picking up right now. The rain's going to follow here pretty soon. It's not going to be long before you start to see that pick up. And unfortunately, that hail potential likely also tracking towards Winslow. Prairie Grove, that hail has come up. In fact, I'm seeing some purples mixing in, and that purple is indicative of 1.5 inch size hailstone. So still looking around ping pong size hail. That's if it's not melting before it hits the ground. So that's likely worst case scenario, ping pong size. Let's hope it's melting. That has happened in recent days, given how hot it is out there. But the storm updraft itself would potentially support ping pong size hail. In fact, I think what we are going to be able to do here, this might look a little bit messy. This is some science in action. I think we can probably measure how tall this storm is. Yeah, right now, what you're seeing here near Prairie Grove, we've got storm tops at 50,000 feet. Big number, right? What does that even mean? Well, just for some context, commercial airliners fly at 30,000 feet. So this storm is strong enough that we have an updraft towering all the way up to 50,000 feet, 20,000 higher than aircraft travel. That's definitely a sign that we could have some large hail. The larger the updraft, the colder it is, so those raindrops get frozen. Although the latest data there suggests maybe we're down to 40, so perhaps some progress as that new scan just came in. The larger the updraft towers way up into the sky, and you can see it, especially in isolated cells like this. If you're far enough away from it, you can see it towering way high. Those raindrops get cooled. Hail will form, it's going to drop, it's going to get heavy, and it's going to start to fall, but that updraft is so strong, right? It gets picked back up, gets sucked right back up to 50,000 feet, and it continues that process. And that's why if you were to get a hailstone, and if you were to cut it in half, you're actually able to see the layers. It's different colors. It's really easy to identify. Eventually that hailstone gets so large that it eventually does fall and make it to the ground, assuming it doesn't actually melt. There's just a little bit of nerdy science for you while we wait on some new data to come in. If you're just now joining us, it is 6:39 on your Sunday evening. A severe thunderstorm warning continues for Washington, parts of Crawford, parts of Madison counties as well. Looking at some traffic flow, I-49 looks to be a bit of a mess right now, as you would expect. Got some accidents, got some slow going traffic. Often is the case when we have thunderstorms like this with such blinding rain. It's not to be taken lightly if you got travel plans out there this evening. In fact, I want to show you a camera. This is going to be looking just south of Fayetteville. Typically on this camera, you're able to actually see due north, and you can actually see campus, the U of A. You can't see anything out there right now, near zero visibility as the heaviest of that rain makes it through this part of the area. It's going to continue tracking towards the south, eventually making it towards the Bobby Hopper Tunnel, and then moving into Crawford and perhaps Franklin County. It looks like the latest trajectory on that may take it through there as well. This specific warning is going to be in effect until 6:45 this evening. That's for 5 more minutes. The Weather Service has yet to decide, or at least yet to announce, whether they're going to issue a new warning further downstream, or are they going to allow this to expire? What I saw a second ago, and I'm going to go back and just take another look before I put my foot in my mouth. I want to make sure that the winds are still coming down just a little bit. Those bright greens right there are where those straight line winds are happening. The brighter the color, the stronger the wind. We don't like that. Still seeing some generally around 40 mile per hour gust. So it is possible that maybe this storm is on a bit of a weakening trend. I still think there's probably going to be a hail concern with it. We'll see if the hail continues to follow. Back over to Hail Tracker, we'll put a path on this. You can see, yeah, I think we might continue to still see that hail core continue tracking closer to Winslow. So we'll keep that in mind. Elkin's probably got some hail moving in here real soon as well. Fayetteville, though, I think you're probably going to be done, at least the majority of Fayetteville, with the hail as is right now. That doesn't mean the heavy rain is not going to continue. That certainly is going to be the case, at least for the next few minutes. You'll notice, though, you're starting to get on that transition zone where you're not finding yourselves in those dark reds, which tell us it's really raining, really heavy. That's where you've probably got some hail mixing in there as well. Prairie Gulf, hold on for just a couple of more minutes. Most of that storm starting to track just off towards the south of 62 there, continuing to follow 49 and 71. 60 to 70 miles per hour wind. That's going to be our primary concern, in addition to quarter size hail. At times, I think we have probably seen some ping pong size hail. It looks like a lot of it's probably starting to melt, at least before it hits the surface. There's still going to be some hail out there. I've already seen a few reports from some folks sending those reports to the Weather Service. So I suspect hail is going to be our secondary threat. None of those reports popping up on our map just yet. A lot of hail and a lot of wind damage in central Arkansas. As you can see out of the Little Rock market, this is really kind of a similar setup. These are those afternoon bubble up showers and thunderstorms. We have to look off towards what's coming out of the northwest, and what we're going to find is not a lot's developed out of Kansas, but there's going to be a potential that we start to see some of these showers and thunderstorms moving out of Nebraska and Kansas, and they're going to be taking a northwesterly flow track, which is to say they're going to develop toward northwest, they're going to track towards the southeast around a periphery of high pressure, and that's kind of the railroad tracks they're going to be taking, which unfortunately are laid right through our neck of the woods. So you got these bubble up showers and thunderstorms that are really taking advantage of all the heat and all the humidity, and then you're going to have a second round probably later into the evening hours as well. We'll see if that's actually able to materialize. Perhaps some of these afternoon thunderstorms can help to stabilize the atmosphere. That's a real possibility with this setup. Real possibility. Stephen, if you want to go to the wall, I can tag over to you. I'm going to do some analysis off screen here for just a minute and let you take control. I'm going to drive for Stephen, and we'll tackle this storm together. And hopefully the threat passes soon, and we'll be able to send you all on your merry way the rest of this evening. In the meantime, the threat continues, and so we're going to be here with you. Meteorologist Stephen Elmore, before I hand it over to you, Stephen, I will tell you, I'll draw your attention to a brand new severe thunderstorm warning. This one does include Crawford, a better chunk of Crawford, a good chunk of Franklin, Madison, Sebastian, and even southern Washington County. Stephen.
Yeah, so with this new warning, first thing that we look at, Scott, obviously, is going to be the latest time. Icon. There we go. All right, new severe thunderstorm warning. First thing that we do is take a look at what the latest timeline is going to be with that. So Scott's going to go ahead and pull up our new timeline. That first warning was going out until 6:45 p.m. This one more than likely going out until around 7-ish o'clock, pretty much after 7. But down the line here, we got Crawford County down to Franklin County. Again, the good news is that for the most part, we've seen maybe a little bit of weakening out of this system. When it came through Fayetteville, we had those wind gusts peaking more than likely 50, 60 plus miles per hour, capable of producing up to 70 miles per hour. Here's the latest timeline for you. Again, this severe thunderstorm moving about 45 miles per hour off towards the south. Very quick moving cell, but it's the only one out there. It's got nothing to stop it, nothing to slow it down. So it's going to keep on moving, picking up that energy. Chester at 6:54, Mountainburg at 6:58, 7:04, 7:09 in Mulberry, down to Ozark at 7:15, Alma at 7:16, Kibler at 7:22. And Charleston eventually at 7:30. So we got some time here, especially folks who are a little bit after 7 o'clock. You want to run outside, you want to get things moved around, patio furniture, anything that's loose outside. Because the main concern is, while yes, we do have some of those hail cores coming down, what really we're concerned about is the winds. And maybe if it is pulsing down right now, what we see with these summertime cells is that they can pulse down, but sometimes they only pulse down briefly, and then they spark right back up and can produce those really strong damaging wind gusts right again. And if there's nothing else out here for the cell to run into, sure, it can pulse down right now, but we'll have to watch it until it really starts to just collapse on itself before we can say you're in the all clear. That's why the National Weather Service was kind of waiting until the last second there to issue that next warning so they can get the freshest data to see if that next warning is even needed. It's not only the winds, though. As Scott's pulling up there, you can see the hail has been a concern. That was our two main threats going into this evening, was the strong winds and the hail potential. Now, the hail, it's kind of pulsing traveling up and down, right? Right now we're seeing those hail cores just south of Fayetteville, anywhere where we see those blue returns starting to come back. That's where we're more than likely seeing something close to that nickel size, maybe trying to get up towards that quarter size. Usually that's when we start to see those deep purple returns. Right now, around that nickel size, could see some of those damage reports coming from hail this evening, but as it stands right now, still my main concern is going to be those strong damaging winds. And unfortunately, you look at the area that it's moving through right now. We were looking at some cameras earlier. This is coming right down 49. Folks who are traveling out there right now, more than likely that blinding rain outside blowing sideways. It is a real mess going on right now if you're driving north and south on 49. What Scott's doing right now is kind of showing you some of those peak wind gusts that we're seeing. Again, even though the warning is issued for 70-mile-an-hour winds, doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see 70-mile-an-hour winds, just capable of producing up to that. When Scott was just pulling up there a second ago, I think I saw some 45s up to 50 miles per hour in between Winslow and just moving just into southern portions of Washington County, where that leading edge is going to be, where you see those reds and greens. That's where that leading edge is right here. This is pushing off towards the southeast, so those strongest winds are going to be right at the front edge of that, right across 74 down to Winslow 71. So again, it looks like the strongest portion of that leading edge just missing 49, but still some strong winds coming in through there. Taking a look at our rain rate return right now, those darker reds. It's not only the wind, but it's also some blinding rain out there as well. You mix all these things together with the wind and the rain and the hail. That's when traveling becomes a really big concern. You're sitting inside in your home, you see out the window, or you're watching us. Yeah, it sounds loud outside. But now when you're in that car and you're traveling, this is where we can get in those dangerous situations, especially Sunday evening. Hopefully, got some folks just waiting this storm out at home. But if you're traveling this evening, that's where we have some issues, especially now traveling close to, like Scott mentioned, Bobby Hopper Tunnel coming up. It starts to get wet around that tunnel. You know, you live here, you can get some accidents in and around there when it starts to get really wet on either side of the tunnel. Winslow right now, that's going to be our greatest concern, is that leading edge is pushing just south of Winslow now, but that heavier rainfall is coming through as well. Take a look over towards St. Paul. That's where that leading edge is going to be as well. More than likely going to see some less of that wind, still some strong winds. You're involved in that warning that still goes out until, is this this is the new warning now, so we got to get that time, that latest time until that expires. It's going out until 7:30. It's another 50 minutes here. But that leading edge where we picked up those strongest winds, that was moving just outside of Winslow. But across southern portions of Madison County, that's where some of those stronger winds are going to be as well. Down the line, Mountainburg, Alma, Ozark. If you got some time right now, right, to move things around, but there's nothing in front of this thing slowing it down. We're just watching it pulse up and down to start to see where we could see some of those strongest returns, where it's capable of producing those winds up to 70 miles an hour. Right now, around that 40, 50 mile an hour range. But even though they're continuing this warning, that's telling us, hey, they're not seeing any signs of slowing it down. So let's go ahead and issue that next warning. Let's go ahead and take a look at hail once again. Good news is that when it was coming through Fayetteville, we had some of those purple returns coming out. And honestly, I was getting a little nervous that hail was going to be our main concern. Now, the good news is, even though we're still starting to see some of those light blue spots starting to pop up, that's that nickel size hail, it's come down a little bit. We're seeing more of those gray returns than those darker colors. That means the hail is becoming a little bit less of a threat, or it just means that it's pulsing down right now. Just south of Prairie Grove, we have some of our largest hail coming down. That dark blue return is what you're seeing, 49 obviously. West Fork area is where we're seeing some of those hail returns coming out as well. Whether it's penny-size hail or it's up to quarter-size hail, if you're traveling on 49, any type of hail is not what you want to be driving through right now. Good news is it's on the lower end of what our radar is trying to say the size of it is, more than likely probably around that penny-size hail. Hail down the line, Winslow area, traveling down I-49 either way. That's where we're going to see the potential of seeing this potentially start to pulse back up. We could see some of those darker returns showing up as well. Fayetteville, that's where we had some concerns early on, and this is what you saw earlier. Scott right now is looping the radar return over the past hour, where we had some of that really big hail coming down just outside the campus. That dark purple return is what you see as well. And now, as we've continued over the past what is this, an hour loop return. Starting to see that coming down just a little bit, Scott.
Yeah, just a couple of notes to pass along to you. I do have some photos off air of some pretty large hail in Farmington. We're talking larger than quarter, but perhaps not as large as ping pong. So radar seemingly doing a pretty decent job of estimating hail size out there this evening. Also starting to get some reports of some power outages as well, and that likely being in the Fayetteville area. Noticed I got one report right off of Weddington. So we'll see if those don't take up. Right now, the power outage tracker shows about a little more than 2,000 outages in Washington County. Not sure how many of those are from today's storm and how many might have been from a day or so ago. So keep that in mind. But right now, 2,000 residents without power in Washington County, perhaps as a result of this thunderstorm. Just measured a 50-knot mile-per-hour gust. So that's 58 miles an hour at the Drake Field there right outside of Greenland, south side of Fayetteville, right? So certainly seeing some pretty strong winds, enough to do some damage. The strongest of which right now I believe to be right here just to the east of Winslow. That's where you start to see that pocket of brighter greens. What radar is sampling here at the moment is about 59, so we're talking 60 mile-per-hour winds. That's plenty enough to do some damage. We're seeing that measured on the ground with official measurements. We're seeing that confirmed by radar at radar beam level. So we got some pretty good indication that this is actually happening. It is actually occurring on the ground there. So keep that in mind if you were just curious about what's actually going to be moving through the area. Bidville, of course, up next. It looks like we are in fact seeing some large hail and some damaging winds with this system. And that's of course just in addition to the really heavy blinding rains. That's also going to be a concern for us. Severe thunderstorm warning right now. It remains in effect until 7:30. Right now it's moving pretty much right on this county line between Washington and Crawford, the leading edges rather, and that's where you would expect to see the strongest of winds. Likely going to be moving into northwestern Franklin County. So Fern, perhaps White Rock, Cass, eventually downstream from that. Bidville, of course, as well. St. Paul needing to be maybe moving away for some windows. That would be a good safety precaution that you could take. Just make sure you're in good shape. You got a couple of minutes, perhaps, if you live well ahead of the storm. What I'll do here is I'll put a track on it. Maybe we can get some new times of arrival for you as to where exactly this storm is going to be impacting. Moving still at 45 miles per hour. So moving pretty consistently. That allows us to give you a pretty good estimated times of arrival. I'll draw this, not with that. So I will draw that with this squall. And that's going to give us on the left side of your screen here, so we might as well take this radar full screen, Trevor. Thank you so much. Off towards the south and east. That's going to put this in Artist Point at 655, Cass 702, Mountainburg 703, Barnes 706, Dean Springs 713, Mulberry and Alma right around 716, 718, Whitaker Village 722, Kibler 723, Cold Hill. Expect this right around 7:30. Hartman, of course, as well. Lavaca 7:32. Charleston 7:36. A couple of those towns I just mentioned were pretty hard hit Friday night into early Saturday morning. We really hope this thing weakens before it makes your situation any worse. You're probably still picking up the pieces, cleaning up the damage. Some folks don't even have their power back on yet. Well, a lot of folks do, but hopefully we can weaken this. Weather Service has increased the size of the hail. That's why it's flashing on your screen. We're now up to 1.25 inches, so a little more than quarter size hail. And it looks like, according to the latest data, that's the largest hail is going to be right north of St. Paul. Highway 295, Highway 16, Highway 23, if you live anywhere in that vicinity, Japton, the community name there, that's where the largest of hail is falling. That's not to say there's not large hail falling elsewhere. Radar currently believes we could be seeing potential of 1.7 inches size diameter. That's about the size of a ping pong ball. Of course, with some melting, maybe we can get that to be a little bit smaller. And that latest scan that just came in shows pretty much the same thing. So data staying somewhat consistent, while the hail in the Washington County sector of the storm maybe not as impressive as it once was. As Stephen pointed out earlier, however, these storms can pulse up, they can pulse down. It's a part of the natural life cycle of these supercells. So expect maybe a weakening trend, but it very well could pulse back up. Certainly not going to give anyone the all clear when it comes to hail or damaging winds. Of course, no one wants to be hit in the head with hail outside. That's the number one reason to be indoors, but your wind potential is going to be just as concerning. This is where we start to see some damage, and I'll tell you, I'm seeing something that I don't necessarily like there. I think I'm seeing some brighter colors, so I want to do some sampling. See what we got here. Yes, our winds have increased in southeastern Washington County, getting ready to move into northeastern Crawford, eventually into northwestern Franklin County. Chester community, you're going to be experiencing those winds likely right now. And it may sustain itself. It looks like there's about 60-mile-per-hour winds just on the northern side of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel right there. In fact, I'm curious if we still have the RDOT camera in that community, that area. We do. I'll show it to you. Shocker, you actually can't see anything. This is looking south from the Bobby Hopper Tunnel. Visibility greatly reduced, probably some blinding rain, 60-mile-per-hour winds moving through that area, as well as the potential for at least a little bit of hail. Again, this is looking south from the Bobby Hopper Tunnel. Those cars, those headlights you see that are inching slowly but surely towards the north, that's going to be northbound traffic heading towards Fayetteville. Starting to get a few reports in to the Weather Service here. We're seeing 1-inch tree limbs down in Johnson, some shingles blown off roofs as well. We'll go back to live radar. Quarter-size hail reported in Washington, Farmington. We saw that report earlier. Going to start to see some more of those. Quarter-size hail downtown, looks like near Fayetteville. So this storm means business. You're looking at a 3-hour loop. We had a lot of heat today, a lot of humidity. And those are two ingredients that can really fuel a thunderstorm. Starting to see a bit of an outflow boundary as well, that green line on the leading edge of that storm. What that is, it's rather interesting, and it tells us this storm is pushing out some pretty strong winds. I'm going to highlight it here just to make sure you can see that. This is essentially a mini cold front. You see that thin green line right there? A gust front now moving into Mountainburg, probably Fern, soon to be White Rock and Cass as well. That is the winds out of the thunderstorm racing ahead of the storm faster than the storm itself is moving, and it kicks up some dust and debris, or maybe it gets some bugs caught up in it, and that is being detected by the radar. That's why we see those green colors there. It tells us there's a lot of winds coming out of it. We see that on radar data. We've measured it a couple of times on some of our automated weather observation stations. That's at those airports, of course, that continuously take weather observations, send us the data. And anytime those are starting to detect severe winds, you know it's actually legitimately happening. Again, this is a considerable severe thunderstorm warning. That's one of the varieties of severe thunderstorm warnings that can be issued now. Franklin is in it. Crawford is in it. The worst of the storm has moved out or is getting ready to move out of Washington County. So if you're in Winslow, I know things are probably pretty tense right now. If you're in Bidville, things are starting to get a little bit intense. Hold on, you got just a few more minutes to go before things start to let up. Things are eventually going to relax. In fact, I'm looking north of the storm and we see even a little bit of sunshine peeking through. So it's a pretty isolated thunderstorm, but it certainly means business. It is strong, right? 70-mile-per-hour winds possible in addition to the hail threat. Let's take a look and see what the hail is showing us now. That hail core coming back up in Washington County, starting to see some blues there. We're also starting to see a larger hail core moving through Madison County. I'm going to take a look at this in Madison County. The worst right now, pretty much right on top of 295, assuming this radar data might be just a couple of seconds old, probably perhaps closer to Highway 23. We're talking the Pig Trail. If you know anyone that lives along or near the Pig Trail in Madison County, pretty large hail core likely to be moving into your area. Doppler radar estimates that right now we're looking at a little more than 1.5 inches, so perhaps slightly larger than ping pong ball size hail. That's a mouthful. Given how hot it is, maybe there's a little bit of melting if we're lucky, but even then, based off some reports that are really starting to come in pretty quickly, I suspect it's probably actually is making it to the ground in many locations as large damaging hail. We'll take a broader perspective. We'll put a map on where those storm reports have come from, and you can see, wow, all of a sudden we see those reports really funneling in from hail to damaging winds measured to tree limbs being down. Power outages starting to come in. We'd love to hear from you. Here's my number at the station, 479-785-5000. If you are able to safely take a picture or a video, and you can text that to us, just do me a favor, include your name and where you took the photo and the video from. That allows us to give you proper credit. We really appreciate your help. And what we do in turn is we pass these reports right on to the National Weather Service. It helps them do a lot of analysis and study and research. looking back to historical events, and that inevitably makes forecasting and models a lot better. So you helping us helps them, helps you. It's a big circle of life, right? All right, back to live radar we go. This is going to be the one storm we've got in northwest Arkansas. It is now moving out of the Boston Mountains into the River Valley. The severe thunderstorm warning does include parts of Sebastian County, including a good chunk of Fort Smith. The warning extends just a little bit south of the Arkansas River. So Charleston's not technically in the warning, although assuming the storm doesn't weaken, you can expect to be in a warning at some point, probably in the next few minutes. We'll put a new track on this, still moving at 45 miles an hour towards the south-southeast. Right in here is going to be their Boeing segment. You can kind of see the bow that storm is somewhat formed. That's those really strong winds rushing out of it. That puts it in Chester at now 7:01, current time 7:01. Mountainburg here in just a couple of minutes at best. Barnes Community 7:09. Graphic 7:11. Watalula, we expect this storm to be there at 7:14. Dean Springs 7:17. Mulberry also at 7:17. Ozark, downtown Ozark 7:21. Whitaker Village 7:24. Altus 7:26. Coal Hill 7:30. Roseville, they're in Logan County 7:32. Hartman, also in Logan County 7:34. Charleston 7:38. Paris a little after that at 7:41. That's some estimated times of arrival, and I always need to give you this disclaimer that as you're making your decisions as to what you have time to do to secure your belongings or seek shelter, you just got to know that those estimated times of arrival are based off of current speeds and current track. We can't control the speed or the track of the storm, so that is subject to some change. Should the storm slow down, maybe you got a couple extra minutes. Should the storm speed up, maybe you don't, okay? So just make good, safe decisions for yourself. We're going to be here to help you do just that, but just know as we call these times out, that is subject to how fast the storm is moving. It's been pretty consistent, I'll tell you that, at least for the last 30 minutes or so, moving at about 45 miles per hour, generally off towards the south-southeast. Starting to see some reports coming in. Thank you very much in Van Buren. Got some pictures of some modest clouds. Getting a report from Aaron, power outages in Weddington. Thanks so much. We see your reports and we appreciate those. And we'll continue to do our best to pass those along to folks in the path of this storm, as well as the Weather Service. Interestingly enough, this is our only storm at the moment. It started off as a couple of really tiny cells. What I'll do is, in fact, I'll just show you that. We'll take this back and do the last 2 hours. And you can just see how quickly, this is 2 hours ago at 5:06. There's hardly even a raindrop in the area, right? You go just a few more minutes and we start to see those showers really bubble up. It's like you just flipped the light switch. These things started growing, merging into larger thunderstorm complexes, and now we're looking at this severe storm producing some damage, moving through northwest Arkansas, out of the Boston Mountains, now making its entrance into the Arkansas River Valley. And it's probably going to continue pushing into the Ouachitas. Minimally, we'll continue to see some rain move into the Ouachitas, parts of Scott, even Logan, southern LaFleur County, perhaps southern LaFleur anyways, I don't know. Maybe with this one, it's maybe just has too much of an easterly track, but perhaps we get some back building, that's really possible. And this isn't going to be our only chance of rain this evening. Looks like we've got a storm report from a storm spotter. This is going to be 1.5 inch hail outside of Farmington. So certainly looks like Farmington may have had the largest hail, at least thus far, in terms of storm reports. That data will continue to come in, and that'll help us get a good idea of who saw the worst. But radar right now suggesting the largest of hail is continuing to be in southern Madison County with some smaller stones in and around the Bobby Hopper Tunnel there in southern Washington County. It really looks like maybe the hail might have come down with the latest scan, but I have to caution you that it's done that multiple times. So we were at 1.6 inches, now we're down to 1.1. And, you know, it's one of those things that it very well could continue pulsing up and pulsing down. And so while we consider it good news at the moment, we also keep in mind that that also may change. It's not necessarily a trend. If anything, the trend is, hey, it's going to pulse up and it's going to pulse right back down. Live winds in the storm are now the strongest in northern Franklin County. Where you see those brighter colors, that's where we would expect to find the strongest straight line winds out of the storm. And you're starting to see those starting to mix in a little bit. Maybe not as strong as it once was, but likely still very severe. I'm going to pick out just a couple of locations that stick out to me. 51 miles per hour. That's going to be near Cass, so not far from Birds, Baptist Vista Church Camp. Cass Job Corps, of course. We're talking the Pig Trail there. Bidville, let's see what your winds are. Down to about 33. Looks like Mountainburg likely going to get close to 50-mile-per-hour winds here real soon. And this is at the radar level. So, you know, the question is, what are they when they push down to the ground? Very well could be intensifying. I suspect we're still seeing damaging winds. We're certainly going to be close enough in range to it. But I'll back this up. It's good measure to back this up and just get a trend. You see right here, this was going to be at 4:06 this afternoon. No, not 4:06. This was going to be at 6:53. So this is just a few minutes ago. You see those really bright orange, bright blues almost, white color, white pixels, southeastern Washington County, just to the north of Bidville. That's radar saying, hey, we're kind of at the top of the scale, right? But you go a couple more minutes into the future, closer to right now. Looks like maybe we even had some blues back there. In fact, let's take a look at this. Yeah, look, it could be bad data mixing in, but radar perhaps estimating near 90-mile-per-hour winds outside of Bidville. That didn't last long, which is some really good news. As that moved into Franklin County, you notice it really kind of fizzled out there. Not to say we're not still having some strong winds. We certainly are, but at its peak, maybe we were 80-ish, closer to 90 at the radar level. So a trend that we didn't want to see. Good news is it didn't last. So let's take a look at some of your storm reports here. I'm going to put this back on live radar. We're going to loop this here for you over the last, let's say, 30 minutes or so. And what I'll do is I'll back this out just so anyone downstream can get a pretty good idea of where this is going. Folks in Johnson County, I want to give you a heads up from Batson to Coal Hill to Hartman, Clarksville, Hagerville, Lutherville, you name it, Johnson County. You're not under a warning yet, but the way the storm is starting to shift a little bit towards the east, something tells me that you might not be putting one pretty soon. I'm getting an idea that the general trajectory of this, trying to take a little bit more of an eastwardly track, which would certainly put you guys in the next line of sight for that specific storm. Okay, now looking at some of your reports, looks like we got some modest clouds out there. The modest are beautiful. Unfortunately, they're often associated with really turbulent winds, which is what we've seen out there. Thank you so much, Anthony, for that photo. Really appreciate it. Aaron, power out in Fayetteville. Let's see what our power outages are up to right now. Looks like they've increased by 4,000. That's statewide, but in Washington County, it looks like we've increased by at least 1,000. Benton County still sitting just around 2,700. So for some context, some of those might have been from the storm a couple of days ago, but there's notably an uptick in Washington County where those winds really moved on through. Power outage numbers come to us a little bit later. It's not instant, right? What happens is you, the customer, have to contact your power provider and say, hey, my power's out, right? And then eventually that data becomes public. While we're here, the linemen, boy, the electric crews have done so much hard work over the last couple of days away from their families in the heat. Our heat index numbers were today around 115. You know, that's just not comfortable, but they're doing it and they're doing it with pride. And we really appreciate you guys, the linemen and electric crews. We know it's hard work and we are definitely thankful very much for that. Severe storm continues to move into Mountainburg, Ozark, Alma. Fort Smith technically under the severe thunderstorm warning. Fort Smith is going to see some gusty winds. I would suspect when we get a new update on the warning, what's going to happen is that the warning will probably trim or at least take out a good chunk of Sebastian County. The reason I think that, as this loops, what you're going to see is the storm itself kind of taking more of a northwest to southeasterly trend. In fact, what we'll do is we'll just zoom this on out, and you can see that it's starting to speed up a little bit. In fact, the last few scans are really moving that storm pretty quickly. In fact, what I'd like to do is, with that in mind, let's see. Weather Service not updating that. I'm going to update it myself and just give you perhaps this puts you a little bit ahead of schedule, if anything, at worst. So last check, it was moving at about 45. What I'm going to do is put this moving at 50. Get some times with that in mind. So this is maybe a worst case scenario. I up the speed just a little bit. Graphic 7:11, Waterloo 7:12. We're talking a minute or two from now. Mulberry, not much longer than that, 7:16. The leading edge of the storm likely moving into your neck of the woods, Whitaker Village. Okay, new severe thunderstorm warning. That does include parts of Johnson County as well as parts of Pope County. We'll come back to that one here in just 2 seconds. Coal Hill 7:26, Hartman 7:28, Hinkle 7:30, Branch, Charleston 7:34, Paris. You're not in the warning yet. You're probably going to be in line for one unless this thing weakens here pretty quickly. Expect that at 7:36, Chisholmville 7:41, Driggs there at 7:41. Okay, I want to take another look at this other new severe thunderstorm warning. This is going to be for Johnson County. The eastern side of Johnson County does not include Clarksville, but it does include Knoxville. This one is until 7:45. The reason the Weather Service issued this, 60-mile-per-hour winds and quarter-size hail. You can see a lot of lightning there as well. New storm report coming into us from the Farmington community. A lot of damage. A lot of reports of damage coming into us from the Farmington community, from large hail to this report is down trees, damage to street signs west of Fayetteville, estimated winds of 65 miles an hour. A lot of lightning in this storm too. This specific one here in Johnson County, over the last 10 minutes alone has had, looks like, about 131 strikes. So certainly a pretty electric thunderstorm. Winds are picking up in Batson, picking up in Ozark, Waterloo, Mulberry. The gust front's likely to be moving in now. Keep in mind that's winds pushing out of the storm. Worst of the winds are going to pick up a couple of minutes after that leading edge actually passes on through. Right now, heavy rain along the Pig Trail north of Ozark. Probably going to get some hail to mix in there as well. We'll take a look at the hail tracker. Looks like just some pockets of some smaller hail. That's some good news. Our Crawford County hail core has come down, likely seeing some hail near Mountainburg, but at its largest at the moment, what we would be looking at would be, let's see, back that up, right along 49, about half-inch hail. Let's hope that trend continues. Not looking as much hail in Madison County as we once were. Last time we checked, there was a lot of blues, even some purples there, but now we're looking at about 0.3 of an inch to 0.7 of an inch of hail. Okay, this is the warning I was expecting just a few moments ago, pulsing on your screen. This is going to be the new severe thunderstorm warning that does include the rest of Johnson County and a sliver of northern Logan County, river bottom land there in Logan County. This is probably going to include Roseville. This is going to include Gray Rock. Scranton, let's call it Scranton, a good majority of Scranton, Spadra, Hinkle, as well as in that severe thunderstorm warning. If you live along Highway 64, not far from 164 or 352 in Clarksville, you're now included in this warning. And the reason the Weather Service issued this specific warning that's now pulsing up on your screen, it's going to be those winds as well. We expect those winds to be about 60 miles per hour. The hail potential is there, maybe not being materialized at the moment, but the potential is there as we see those reports continue to funnel in the storm's recent history, perhaps as high as 1 inch in diameter. Quite a swath of severe warnings now pushing through the Arkansas River Valley. Technically, Washington and parts of Madison County are included in the warnings that are ongoing, but the heavy rain starting to decrease as that pushes off towards the south and east. A large majority of the worst of the winds right now would be in the River Valley, exiting the Boston Mountains. What I'll do here is I want to take a look at winds. Still seeing some pockets, and what's interesting to me here, not only do you see the broader greens here, and they've come down, I grant that, but there's a really sharp line here, which tells me that's probably where the strongest of winds are. We're talking 103, that's going to be in northern Johnson County, south of 215, however. Right along in the Batson area. That's probably where we're seeing some really strong winds. Mountaintop, not far from there. Barnes community, certainly seeing some pretty strong winds. And that's going to likely be moving into the southern part of Franklin County here real soon before eventually, assuming this storm continues shifting towards the south and east or orienting itself, is likely to place some pretty heavy winds in Johnson, Logan, and eventually into Pope counties over the next couple of minutes. I want to bring back in meteorologist Stephen Elmore. I'm going to work with some storm spotters and communicate with those folks. And Stephen, I'm going to turn this over to you. It looks like pulsing there on the screen is going to be a new severe thunderstorm warning. That runs until 7:30. No, or is that the same one?
Same one.
They've just updated that one. And the reason it looks like they've updated that one Perhaps what we're doing is, well, 1 inch. Okay, well, we've updated it. We've taken Washington and Madison out. That's what we've done. Okay, all right, I'm going to turn this over to meteorologist Stephen Elmore. We'll be right back with you.
Yeah, so across northwest Arkansas, we are warning free now. It got really busy there. It was very interesting to show you what Scott was showing you earlier about how we went from almost nothing outside when it was crossing into northern Benton County and into Washington County, and then it just exploded right away. That's what happens during these summertime storms, that we go from absolutely nothing to something really quickly. Now, again, this is still continuing its track, even though a little bit of a good sign, that gust front coming out ahead of it and trying to gust itself out. It's still producing some really strong winds. That's why they're continuing this warning. But we've got 3 different warnings now along this really messy line of this one cell that we have that's cutting into the river valley now. So we got our warning further out towards the east. That's producing a lot of that lightning, also some of those stronger winds as well. I believe this was for those 60-mile-an-hour winds. Definitely where we've seen the stronger winds is going to be further across Crawford and into Franklin County. I think Johnson County, we're seeing a little bit more of that lightning threat and a little bit more of that hail threat as well, but definitely still going to see the potential of some of those strong damaging winds right along with it. This has always been this evening a wind threat and a hail threat, and so far that's coming to fruition here, where we're seeing those strong damaging winds still moved right down I-49. And now if you look what's to come, even though those winds are only peaking up around 40, 50 miles per hour, I-40 is where we're going to see that next mess come into play, where we're going to see some really strong damaging winds come through a very high trafficked area, and also some of that hail as well. So that's what's down the line for us. Really, we're seeing that lightning just now peaking up near southern Madison County into northern Johnson County as well. That's also a factor here too, is the frequent lightning strikes that we're seeing. That good news is coming down a little bit, less of that trend across portions of Crawford into Franklin and Sebastian County. Doesn't mean, though, we can't see this thing start to pulse back up. That's the battle that we've been fighting with this one cell, is that there's nothing in front of it to slow it down or stop it from pulling in all of that energy. So it's still just out there by itself, using all of it up, pulsing down, and now we're starting to see that pulse up back again, resulting in 2 more warnings across Johnson County and pushing into Logan County as well. We got 2 different National Weather Service offices here starting to work together. Franklin County is the cutoff line, so Johnson County, these warnings coming out of the National Weather Service out of Little Rock. And pretty much no matter where you look, we're hearing the same story of where it being those strong straight line winds and also the potential of some of that hail as well. I'm going to start to pull some different information for you, start to show you where those winds are strongest, start to show you where that hail is coming in as well. And here's a look at velocity, and you see where those winds are moving in right now, just south of Alma is where you see that definite line of that straight line wind starting to come in. So Fort Smith area, those wind gusts most likely coming in around 40, 50, up to 60 miles per hour very shortly here. Ozark, you just had those straight line winds come through. South of Ozark, we're going to see those winds continue to push towards Charleston and Paris and Shoal Creek down the line. Eventually, Clarksville. That's where we're going to see those winds coming up next. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this out, and then I'm going to pass it back over to Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert. This is still moving about 45 miles per hour. We're going to give you the best timing that we can get to give you an update on, assuming that this is going to uphold its strength. If it shows its history of last time, the National Weather Service waited to the last second to issue that next warning. So that's what we're preparing for, is that they may wait until it's just on the edge of that warning polygon before they issue the next one. So here's those times for you. Lavaca at 7:25, Coal Hill at 7:27, Charleston 7:29, Barling at 7:30, down to Paris at 7:36.
All right, we just had a report of 40-mile-per-hour winds. That's going to be at the courthouse in downtown Ozark. So that was probably a result of the actual gust front itself, not the actual straight line winds likely moving through. Seeing some pictures from David. This is likely going to be in Coal Hill, I believe. Looks like the leading edge of the storm getting ready to move into Johnson County. It's not, I'll tell you this, from a visual perspective, just kind of looking at the storm structure as it appears on radar, it doesn't look as, let's say, punchy as it once did, as it's starting to look a bit more messy. I still believe we have severe winds, And I probably believe there's probably some pockets of some small hail with this storm. But just looking at the overall representation as radar sweeps through it, I'll tell you, it looks a little bit more unorganized as compared to how it was when it was moving through parts of Washington and even Madison counties. If there's anything else that I would point out to you, and we can do this with some anecdotal evidence. The eastern flank of the storm that's right now moving through Johnson County, that's likely now becoming the more dominant cell within this storm. There's a couple of things to note there. One, it is more organized. You're seeing some sharper lines and it's a bit more defined, but you can also see the lightning. The lightning is often a great way to get an idea of how healthy a storm is. I often liken lightning count to a person's blood pressure at the doctor's office. You get it taken, right, and it kind of gives you some insight as to the health. We can look at the lightning count in Johnson County. This is the last 10 minutes alone. We're up to 311 strikes. About 10 minutes ago, it was around 130. You look at the western side, and we're about 85. So what's happening here is this storm is starting to become more dominant on the eastern flank. It's Johnson County, where I suspect right now we're probably having the strongest of the winds. That's not to say we're not seeing severe winds in Franklin, okay? I just think the strongest is likely going to be happening right now in the parts of Johnson and even Pope County. Pope County, you're technically in the Little Rock's viewing market. We're going to cover the storm for you here. Dover included in that severe thunderstorm warning, as is probably the London community. We're talking Arkansas Nuclear One, the big cloud maker along I-40, also included in this severe thunderstorm warning. We'll take a closer look. I'm going to pause this. Live radar right now shows the rain really starting to come down, probably just on the northern side of Coal Hill, getting really close to I-40. You're probably going to see those skies darken up pretty soon if it hasn't already. And then live radar winds, taking a look at this, you know, it's certainly more organized, but I don't know if it's as strong as it was. Still about 50 mile per hour winds at radar level. We're getting pretty consistent reports from spotters as well as actual observed measurements in Franklin County, just on the west side of this, of about 45 miles per hour. So I think this data is solid, okay? I think what we're seeing here probably is actually making it to the ground. This isn't a situation where the winds decrease before they get to where you and I live here on the surface level. I think they probably are actually making it to the ground. And the leading edge is probably going to be starting to fan out here along I-40, probably between Coal Hill and, let's say, Clarksville right now, getting ready to move into the west side of Clarksville. Some firefighters reporting numerous downed trees in Ozark. Unfortunately, getting that report in from our colleagues there. Let's back this up. Just want to see what the winds were showing as that storm moved in. Pretty bright greens there, pretty strong winds. Now starting to transition over into Johnson County. East side of Franklin probably still has some pretty strong winds. Whitaker Village, especially there near the vineyards, the wineries, probably seeing some pretty gusty winds right now. What's the hail doing? Really strong hail core splitting the Johnson-Pope County line along 164. That's going to be near Bullfrog Valley, Holman, Ross. We're kind of in the mountains there, right? But looks like the radar is estimating that we could see hail as large as just shy of 2 inches. That's the largest sampling I've seen so far today. And that hail is really going to be insult to injury. It's the winds that's going to cause the worst of the damage. You add the hail on top of that, and then we're just not doing great, are we? Back to live radar, let's see where the heaviest is. Still seeing this become really more dominant on the eastern flank in Johnson County. Lightning's probably come up just a bit there. We'll take another sampling of that just to get a good idea. Up to 715 strikes in the last 10 minutes. Meanwhile, we're not seeing as much in Ozark. Stephen, what we can do, folks up in the, if you could pull up our Ozark camera on Max 2. Folks up in the back, when Stephen gets that ready, I'd like to take a look at Max 2. Not yet, I'll tell you when, but Stephen's going to work on that. That Ozark camera looks from Arkansas Valley Electric. It looks over the Arkansas River to the south, but I keep it pointed, in fact, I can look at it on my phone. I keep it pointed off towards the east for the most part, and that's going to give us a pretty good view into the backside of this storm. That's perfect too if you want to do that. Thank you so much. I can see it. Sunshine to the south. Looks like it's sunny in the southern side of Franklin County over into Logan. Gust front likely crossing the Arkansas River now into Logan County. Let's put the track on this. First I want to see this loop. Okay. Oh wow, the camera's a dancing up there. It's shaking. That's the winds Looks like you can see the sunshine there just to the south, probably over near Paris. Unfortunately, that's probably going to end here pretty soon. Back to live radar, if you will. The reason I want to go back to live radar is, let's see. Yeah, I look at the last couple of scans, guys. You go from a pretty well-organized storm to certainly a strong storm, but undergoing some issues, not as organized as it once was. Obviously, you just saw the winds there on the camera. So even as it's not as organized as it was, it's still certainly going to be a pretty strong storm. Getting a text message, leading edge that hit Ozark was 55 to 60 miles per hour. Severe, right? Like enough to have a severe thunderstorm warning. It's going to cause some damage. It's all a matter of context, though, and the context is that it at one point probably had 70-ish mile per hour winds. So maybe slowly but surely we can weaken this thing. Hopefully we're seeing that trend. We'll see. We'll keep here with it until the threat's passed or it's moved out of our area, which could be in the next hour or so. Time now 7:26. Do have 3 severe thunderstorm warnings in effect. Primarily, it's going to be for Crawford. Look, Sebastian County is included in the warning. I suspect, though, you're probably not going to get much from this specific cell. And the reason is, and I'll put this over on a 15-minute loop for us, you can see that a large majority of this is probably not going to hit Sebastian County. I have no doubt there are people in Sebastian County who got hit hard, really hard, Friday night. We went through that with you, right? This probably isn't going to cause that much of an issue for you. You have a gust front that's going to move through. Winds are probably going to pick up. And if there's any loose limbs hanging out there, perhaps maybe you might have a little bit of issues. But we're talking about 30 to 40 mile per hour winds with that gust front that's really pretty much right now crossing the Arkansas River into Sebastian County. It's going to be Franklin, it's going to be Johnson counties that see the brunt of this in the next few minutes before eventually pushing probably into Logan County. I want to go over to the Little Rock National Weather Service. They're the office that's actually responsible for Logan County warnings. I'm going to see what they're thinking with regards to this storm. Sometimes they'll give us an idea of, hey, we're not going to extend a warning, or we are, and sometimes we can pass that information along to you before they actually do it. I'm not seeing any of that coming, any of that information, unfortunately. So what we've got, we'll take a look at this. Warning for Crawford and Franklin runs until 7:30, 2 more minutes. We'll see what they determine to do. For Johnson County, that's going to be until 8 o'clock for the western side of the storm, which includes Clarksville, Hartman, and Hartman. The eastern side of the storm until 7:45. That warning also includes a good chunk of Pope County as well. Let's go back to the hail. The hail was pretty impressive in a not so great way earlier. It's about the same. Okay, looks like Weather Service is going to go ahead and issue a severe thunderstorm warning for Sebastian and southern Franklin County. Let's see what their thinking here is. Let's go back to live radar. Perhaps it's just the gust front. Perhaps it's the gust front that's going to be coming out of that area. Do you guys have a Fort Smith camera you can pull up? Maybe ACHE or Mercy? I'd like to see what's happening there. Okay, thank you guys so much. The folks up in the booth doing incredible work for us here this evening. This is going to be ACHE. Looking off towards the west, you can see some of that storm cloud starting to move in. Probably looking in the wrong direction there to get a good view of it. The Lavaca, your winds are probably picking up. You're going to have a good downpour here in Alma over the next few minutes. Frog Bayou, probably going to see that rain. Van Buren, probably going to see some sprinkles as well. Mulberry, heavy rain continues, probably not for much longer. Let's just work our way east along 40 and 64. Ozark, the rain's continuing. Leading edge of that storm came through. Just got a report, 55 to 65 miles per hour when the storm moved through Ozark. Whitaker Village, heavy rain continues. Is there any hail with that side? No, not seeing any hail there. If it is, it's really small. Starting to see seeing things can deteriorate in Coal Hill as well as Hartman. Spadra up next, Clarksville, probably moving in real soon. Winds are getting real breezy in Clarksville. I'm confident. Knoxville as well. It looks like the Weather Service has allowed to expire anyways, a chunk of that warning that moved through Waterloo and Ozark. That's why that gap now exists. Charleston's included in the southern half of that warning, as is Greenwood, Lavaca, Mansfield, a good chunk there of southern Franklin County. Stand by. Getting a report from emergency managers, and I just want to get an idea of what I'm seeing here on live radar first. Looks like that storm, when it moved through Franklin, probably did a decent amount of damage. The reports that are coming in. Stephen, I'm gonna pass this over to you here real quick.
Yeah.
While I work with these folks offline.
Yep. Yeah, so far we've seen one additional warning that was issued for portions of Sebastian, portions of Franklin County as well. Again, we were kind of unsure if we were going to get a warning. They waited up until the last second before they issued it. While the storm itself doesn't look that impressive for that warning, it's the gust front that's a part of it too, right? Along with that gust front where that cell kind of is letting it gust out in front of it. Some pretty strong winds. So Greenwood area just moving through South Fort Smith right now. Eventually eastern Oklahoma down to Spiral. We could see some of those stronger winds kick up. I can't necessarily promise that you're going to see heavy rainfall follow suit with it as this cell starts to collapse just a bit, but also make more of a southeastern turn as well. That's what Scott's working on right now, is what exactly happened as it came through Franklin County, where we had that warning. They canceled it now or let it expire, but now we're still seeing some of that heavier rainfall in and around the Ozark area, right across I-40 as well. Now really our attention is turning to where the strongest portion of this cell is going to be, kind of where it's strengthened up a bit. You see all that lightning going on across portions of Johnson County north of Clarksville, but still that's going to be moving our direction. They're updating that warning. Most likely probably seeing the winds tick up just a bit if I had to take a guess of why we're starting to see the strengthening on the eastern side. But if we were to loop it, not saying that we're going to do that right now, if we were to loop it, you'd probably see that that western side has definitely started to collapse just a bit, or it's really taken that turn off towards the southeast. So that's why when we say folks who are watching us in Fort Smith and Alma, it's raining right now in Alma, but it's not necessarily the downpour that other places have seen and places are seeing right now across portions of Johnson County as that cell makes kind of that shift off towards the east. Here's a look at radar right now. Still 3 severe thunderstorm warnings. Again, our warning that's a part of Crawford, Sebastian, Franklin County, really most likely due to that gust front that's coming out. The rest of Johnson County, though, is where a majority of this healthy cell is. Lots of lightning, frequent strikes coming down as well in northern Johnson County. This is a very healthy supercell that's producing some of those strong winds, more than likely seeing some of that hail. I know our largest hail core was right on the Pope Johnson County line right there. So more than likely we're going to see this cell hopefully take a pulse down, try to weaken just a bit. But right now, like Scott was kind of describing for you, with all this lightning that we're seeing, it's healthy right now. It doesn't look like it's going to pulse down anytime soon. The good news is further west we look, that's where we're kind of seeing it starting to collapse just a bit. Still, no, some heavy rainfall coming down, at least for probably the next hour or so. I know that warning, we're sitting right now at 7:34. That goes out until 8 p.m. So we've got at least another 20-30 minutes or so. If this system lasts until this warning, we'll see if we get another warning down the line. That next would be coming for portions of Logan County. Warnings already issued into Logan County already right now. We'll wait down the line to see if this cell can produce another warning down the line.
One of the things I've noticed here is I've looked back into parts of Crawford County. It looks like what's happening here is the storm is starting to develop back off towards the west. If you look back off, into parts of Alma, now south of 40 in Alma, over the last 15 minutes alone, the storm's really kind of starting to grow together. So definitely the cell is undergoing some reorganization, if you will. And I think that's probably the reason for concern there, especially just given how quickly these storms have popped. This afternoon, this went from a tiny little rain shower with a couple of sprinkles in Benton County to a full-on 70-mile-per-hour just damaging straight-line wind event. So I think the part of the reason why we've got that Crawford and New Sebastian and New Franklin County warning is this is likely to develop into something that could produce some gusty winds, minimally, maybe even a little bit of hail. Starting to see the lightning come up as well as it gets closer to the river there in parts of Crawford and Sebastian counties. We'll come closer. Lavaca, the winds are going to pick up. Right now in Kibler, it's coming down hard. It's gusty. You got some good heavy rains. Vesta community, just to the east there, you're also going to probably be seeing those rains pick up over the next few minutes. I'm not seeing any hail in that part of the storm. This is hail detector. Not seeing anything there when it comes to winds. We're a little close to the radar. Sometimes that can be good. Sometimes that can cause us some issues. Not seeing at the moment. That's not to say that doesn't happen real soon. Getting some decent reports of damage in and around the area. In fact, this is probably, what I'll do is I'll zoom back out, get an idea of where those storm reports have come in. A large chunk of them have came in out of Northwest Arkansas, Benton, and Washington County. The threat for the time being has passed there. With that said, that doesn't mean we might not see additional showers and storms later into the evening. And so severe thunderstorm watch is in effect for the entire area until 10 o'clock this evening, the exception being eastern Oklahoma, the exception being Carroll County, a large chunk of Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. We'll see if there's additional watches needed. For the time being, that's the one we've got to work with. Area-wide radar shows a cluster of thunderstorms moving into Johnson County. That's where the heaviest of winds and heaviest of rain and probably even a little bit of hail is falling. Hail core, looks like there's really four distinct areas in Johnson County. You can see the brighter blues. That's probably where we're seeing the largest of hail, which at this point might be around an inch. That's the size of a quarter. That's what you would need to see a severe thunderstorm warning issued. Elsewhere, about half-inch hail, generally speaking, where you see those grays. So not enough to cause some damage, but certainly wouldn't want to get hit with that. Let's see, some damage being reported in northern Franklin County. You know, one of the things, I'm going to back up. This is kind of, I was getting some reports and wanted to look at this off air. I'm going to back this up over the last few minutes. When that storm moved into northern Crawford County, northern Franklin County, we're talking Bidville, Fern, Barnes, Cass, White Rock even. I think it had some really strong winds. In fact, we're going to look at velocity here, and you start to see a small area that probably had 50, 60, 70 mile per hour. We'll back it up as that storm moved through. So we're going in reverse time. You see where those winds start to peak blue here? There's 72 in southeastern Washington County. You go a little bit further, still looking at 60, near 70 mile per hour winds. Let's see. And then this happens. And I already know what this data is going to say. Radar estimated winds, and again, data isn't always perfect, but it can be pretty decent, right? We're 60 to 100 mile per hour winds, perhaps. That's a wide swath. I'm not saying we had 100 mile per hour winds, but I think we, for a brief moment, may have had some really intense straight line winds coming out of that system as it crossed out of Washington into that northeastern sliver of Crawford into northwestern Franklin County. I think that likely happened, and based off of some of the damage reports that we're seeing just now come in, sometimes it takes a while, right? I think that's probably a real consideration. We'll let the radar scan get us some more data to come into the area. Worst of the storm definitely moving into Johnson County, and that's going to continue pushing into Pope County, where there's also another severe thunderstorm warning in effect with that specific storm. We'll pause this here in the River Valley. Northwest Arkansas, we're good right now, okay? We'll keep checking in just to make sure nothing's changing, but for the time being, Northwest Arkansas is in fine shape. I'm watching offhand. If you're wondering what in the world, Scott, are you looking at over here, this is how we communicate with storm chasers, storm spotters, National Weather Service, local emergency managers, local law enforcement, and so I'm just making sure we're keeping you posted with everything we know as we know it in real time. Stephen, I'm going to go ahead and ask you to go back to the wall. We'll bring you back in here. Yeah, let's do that, and then I'll draw for you.
We still are going on with our 3 warnings, I believe, still. Yeah, we've got 2 in Johnson County and then 1 in portions of Crawford into Sebastian County. 8:15 is that warning further off towards the west for anywhere folks from Alma to Fort Smith, Greenwood down to Mansfield. Again, that's, let's see, 35 more minutes involved with that warning. That's our newest warning that we have. Our other 2 warnings going out until 7:45 should be wrapping up here pretty soon. We'll probably see if they go ahead and reissue that warning, redraw it, and expand it to some more communities, as that's probably the healthier side of our cell. I'm going to step off screen here. Here's our number here at the station. Especially Scott's, stepping off, trying to get some more information of the damage that may have happened in that area that we were just analyzing. But this is how we get the best information is from you guys out there with those storm reports. So 479-785-5000. Send it in and do us a favor and include your name and where you're coming from and where you're sending it from, so we can have a best understanding of, hey, where was these winds really the strongest? Can we get some images? Can we get some videos all in the same community and say, hey, this was one of those areas that got hit hard? We need to go ahead and send these off to the National Weather Service. So again, 479-785-5000. Here's another look at radar for us. Again, we've been kind of just watching this one cell kind of grow, pulse up, pulse down, move directions a little bit. Again, we've got still some strong thunderstorms just south of Alma. These are more clustered. It's very messy outside, but it's still enough to produce that warning. Wind gusts probably around 40, 50 miles per hour. I know that this warning is just right on the edge of what it's supposed to be like for a warning, which is that 60-mile-an-hour winds. Further east you look, we got that new warning. Again, we had that warning going out until 7:45, so they're waiting up all right into the last minute and going ahead and redrawing it. So new severe thunderstorm warning now still includes Clarksville, but also includes a lot of eastern Logan County as well. Even though we don't cover it, going all the way down to Russellville as well. If you're watching us out in Russellville, that warning new to you. We got some strong damaging winds coming out of this cell. You still got some time if you're in the Russellville area. Paris, though, even though you're outside of the warning, you're outside of two different warnings actually. More than likely still going to see some strong winds come through. More than likely still going to see some of that rain come through as well. The strongest, the healthiest portion of this cell, though, is Clarksville through Russellville, where you see these strong winds coming through and a lot of lightning on the northern end of that cell as well. Scott?
Continuing to see some reports of a lot of damage in Franklin County.
Yeah.
As we pass these reports along to you, a large majority of Franklin County has lost power. Damage from emergency managers reporting to us, numerous trees down. Based off of radar data, I suspect that is going to continue to be the case. Stephen, I'm going to pass right back to you.
Oh,
I'm going to work my Franklin County sources real quick.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yep. So let's go ahead and talk about this new warning that we have. Again, this is still including a lot of Johnson and Logan County right now. It's kind of a mess though, right? We had a really good healthy cell that was across northwest Arkansas. As it started shifting towards the east, that western side, even though still holding enough strength to have that warning into portions of Franklin and Crawford and Sebastian County, it's coming down, let's say. It's not producing as strong of those winds, not producing as heavy of those frequent lightning strikes as well. This is where the heaviest system is going to be now. It's right on the eastern side of Johnson County and moving into Logan County as well. You see that gust front that we have right here? That's that cell trying to collapse apart, gusting that system out. That's why we may have saw that western side start to weaken just a little bit. Where we don't find that gust front, where we're hoping it will eventually start to pop up, is the eastern side of this cell that's really starting to come together now. That's part of the cell that came through portions of Franklin County that we're trying to get some damage reports of now, where we had some of those stronger winds. Again, radar really tries to do us a favor by estimating what the winds were like, and it gives us a really good idea, but anywhere between 60 to 100, that's what we're trying to do right now, is to narrow down where exactly was the strongest winds at, and we have to compare that to, unfortunately, where the damage is going to be as well. I will tell you this, another concern that I have with Johnson County, we're really starting to see a lot of this rain, a lot of that red pop up as well, and it's been in Johnson County for at least an hour or two now. Could have some flooding issues, especially in some low-lying areas. Haven't got any flood alerts just yet, but I know we have some low-lying areas in and around Johnson County. You know where you live, you know where those low-lying areas are. We could have some flooding issues if we don't see this system get on out of here and continue to push off towards the east. Right now, it's pulsing back up, still able to produce that severe thunderstorm warning with those wind gusts. We more than likely have those wind gusts anywhere between 60 to 70 miles per hour. I'm actually going to step off real quick and be able to get some information for you. So that new warning, that's going out until, we got another 44 minutes on it, but that's for 60-mile-an-hour winds and nickel-size hail involved in that cell. So that is going out for another 40 minutes. The warning that we had in Crawford, Sebastian County, this is going out for another 30 minutes. And I'm going to go and step over here and drive radar real quick. All right. Let's take a look at velocity. Let's kind of reset here and see where those strongest winds are. Again, that's more than likely why we're seeing these warnings start to come back up, is where the strongest winds are. I'd say Clarksville area right now, that's where some of those stronger winds are. The reason we had the warning extended into portions of Logan County is you see where that right here, I'm going to zoom in very close, just south of 22. Just south of Shoal Creek. That's where some of those stronger straight line winds are as well. But honestly, nothing as impressive as it was just a little bit ago. No signs that I'm seeing right here where we could see those wind gusts peaking up to causing the damage that we've had in Franklin County, which those winds right now we're estimating based off of what we see off radar, anywhere between 60 up to 100 miles per hour. It's a number in between that, not close to that 100 miles an hour. Hopefully we didn't hit, but no signs right now seeing that we have those winds sustained anywhere else in that Johnson County warning, which is a good sign. But also what we've been playing a factor in as well is the hail. The hail has been an issue following this cell. The good news is, taking a look at those hail cores, seeing a lot of those gray returns. If you've watched us before, we kind of walk through what those different colors mean. When we start to see those deep blue or even purple returns, those are some very large hail cores, anywhere between nickel, quarter plus size hailstones that can cause some damage. Clarksville, we are seeing some hail right now. That's that gray return coming down. That's more than likely around that penny size hail. And since it is so warm outside, we had heat index values way into the triple digits today, that excessive heat warning. Most of it, hopefully, is melting before it reaches the surface, especially if it's only falling around that penny-sized hail. So we could see some small hail coming down in the Clarksville area now. Coming up next would be northern Logan County. We could see some small hail as well. But honestly, it's just the wind that's playing a factor right now, and honestly, also the lightning that we're playing a factor in as well. So there's another look at velocity. What I wanted to do there was pull up our sweeping radar and kind of loop this over the past, loop this over the past hour and see what our latest trends are going to be. So we'll start where that warning was just trimmed into Sebastian County. And honestly, while we don't get an explanation of why a warning was trimmed or what, we just get what's involved, what's the main threats of it, which would be wind or hail. This warning that's a part of Greenwood, Mansfield, it has to just be because of this gust front that we have still producing some very strong winds in it as well, because even the rain that we see popping up on radar, that's right just south of the Crawford County line, moving into northern Sebastian County, the Lavaca area, Charleston area, you're left out of that warning, so it cannot be that cell. This has to be because of some really strong winds that are just about to be pushing just north of Mansfield, just south of Greenwood. I'll go ahead and zoom in here. Dayton, and honestly, Mansfield and Midland is what's coming up next to that gust front. It might get pretty breezy there here in the next couple of minutes. Where the healthier cell is, that's moving into northern Logan County, into southern Johnson County. Northern Johnson County, where we still have a warning right now, I'd imagine the National Weather Service out of Little Rock is going to start trimming this warning down that we have, because right now you get into the Batson area of northern Franklin or northern Johnson County, it's still raining, but the worst is far behind it, even though you're still in that warning. So hopefully we see some good signs coming out of that and it starts to get trimmed a bit. Clarksville, we had a really strong cell moving through now. Now where the main concern is going to be is Knoxville, Russellville, Shoal Creek area, right along that leading edge. And we'll try to see if when we pull up velocity here, we could see some signatures of why we're still getting that warning. And we're starting to see still some stronger winds just south of Knoxville, just east of Shoal Creek, and just south of Dover as well. London area, Russellville, down to Delaware as well. So we're bouncing between radar sites there. I want to get closer to there we go. So Knoxville area, That is pulling from the Little Rock radar site there. And honestly, I think it's giving a little bit, just a different image for us, but we're really starting to see some of those stronger returns coming back as well. Kind of far away on both sides of the radar site, but that's warnings going out until 8:30. That was for 60-mile-an-hour winds. If we pull up our wind, trying to get a good estimate of what the wind would actually be there, I imagine we'll start to see some 50, 60-mile-an-hour returns. Let's see here. Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. Enough to still withhold a severe thunderstorm warning, definitely. That's where those strongest, that's why that warning was reissued to include the rest of Johnson County and parts of Logan County. So Knoxville area, London, down to Delaware, Shoal Creek, that's where those strongest winds are right now. South of Scranton, you're still seeing probably that downpour right now, but overall the strongest winds are towards the south and towards the east of you. If we pull up our sweeping radar again, good news is that rain is starting to clear out of some of those areas that were potentially were hit the hardest, where we're getting a lot of those storm reports are. And like Scott was mentioning earlier, why he was looking off to the side here, I'm just looking off here trying to get some new information that's going through the National Weather Service, a lot of emergency managers in and around the area as well. But this new warning, that is going to go out until 8:30, and hopefully the next sign that we see is they start to trim down the warning that's right behind it. That one should be, if not trimmed down, shouldn't be expired nonetheless pretty soon. Let's loop this over the last, let's do 45 minutes. And you can kind of see the overall trends here. Warning that's still going on for Greenwood, Mansfield area. That goes out until 8:15. We've got another about a little less than 20 minutes for that. We'll see if that warning continues itself. Other than that, the strongest portion of the south still southeast Johnson County, northeast Logan County is where the healthiest still is.
Power outages in Arkansas up to 21,000. Not all of those are in our neck of the woods. There's a good chunk of those actually in southeastern Arkansas. Got a couple of things to pass along to you. Numerous reports of damage around the area. In fact, so much so that it's kind of been tough to keep up with them. Happens really quickly, right? And then those damage reports come in after folks have had a second to go outside and take account for everything that's happened. A lot of this is likely going to be related to straight line winds. You've had some hail in there as well. There is a severe thunderstorm warning for Sebastian County. We're talking Greenwood, Mansfield, southern Sebastian County. That's associated with a gust front. And this is a really interesting setup. To be honest, I don't know if I've ever seen a severe thunderstorm warning issued for only a gust front. You see that green line right there? If you just looked at that on any old normal day, you might not think much of it. Well, that's some really cold air, and cold's a relative term, right? Coming out of the storm that's well off to your north and east and now pushing off towards the east. Nonetheless, wind is wind, especially given how much damage and how many issues we had Friday night into Saturday morning. That could be knocking over some loose limbs, okay? That could be causing us some issues out there. That's why that warning is issued. So I don't want you to see Doppler radar and think, what in the world's going on? There ain't even a raindrop. Probably isn't a lot of rain. The green next to you're seeing on radar is probably not rain itself. It's actually dust. It's maybe some leaves. It's pollen. It's things that the radar just is getting confused by. Nonetheless, it shows us where that gust front line is. It's pushing towards the southeast. So Bacola, you just saw it come through. No warning for LaFleur County, but Poto, your winds are about to pick up. It's going to be gusty for a little bit. Likely less than severe limits. Thus, there's no severe thunderstorm warning, but perhaps 30, 40 mile per hour winds over the next couple of minutes. It's moving pretty close to you. We have dropped Crawford County from the severe thunderstorm warning. Crawford County Emergency Management reporting a lot of power outages, a lot of damage, especially in the northern and northeast part of the county. You got a couple of showers now starting to pop up near Charleston, not severe at the moment. Franklin, the rain's wrapped up. Looks like there's quite a bit of wind damage in Franklin County as well. Johnson County, got a couple of warnings here. It looks a little bit messy on our screen. We'll take a closer look in. You're going to find, once I pause this, that the western half of Johnson County, so we're talking Hartman and Coal Hill, rain's starting to come to an end, but we still have some pretty intense downpours, a lot of lightning, a lot of thunder, some gusty winds in places like Knoxville, but things in Clarksville, so to speak, starting to get a little bit more relaxed. I know it was really intense for us. In Logan County, our warning continues for Delaware, for Shoal Creek. Paris, the rain, pretty intense, but you're actually not in the worst part of the storm. I've kind of got you covered up there. Let me recenter you over Paris. For folks in Paris, I think we're actually in okay shape. In terms of the wind. I think it's probably going to be breezy, and you might even see some heavy rain, some lightning. But for the most part, the most intense part of this storm, I'm going to draw some arrows around it, is going to be from Shoal Creek, probably up towards Hagerville, through Clarksville, and off towards the east. And soon it's likely going to be moving into parts of Yell County and Pope County. This storm still moving at 40 miles per hour. That's been somewhat consistent for us this evening, which is, in some respects, some good news that it's not slower, right? I'd love if we could speed this thing up, but unfortunately that's not the case. It looks like of the counties tracked, I'm going to read these off to you, a whole bunch of numbers here. Benton County, we're at right around 1,300 power outages. Washington County sits just shy of 4,000. Crawford County, 1,100. Madison County, 639. Franklin County now up to 1,300. Logan County just shy of 900. Johnson County just shy of 200. Keep in mind these reports take a while to come in. What happens is the process looks like this. Your power goes out. You contact your local power provider. They figure out what's going on, and then eventually they make that data public to us. And so while those are the current numbers, I suspect they're higher. All that to say that, I think we have more power outages than what I can actually report to you. It's just going to be a matter of time before we're actually able to get an accurate measurement of what kind of damage we're looking at. Franklin County emergency managers, Crawford County emergency managers, right now doing some damage surveys. I suspect Washington County is as well. Just haven't heard from those guys. I need to send John a text message. So I'm going to bring Stephen back in. I'm going to contact Washington County Emergency Management and see if I can't get some more information for you. Right now, our main severe thunderstorm warning is going to be in effect until 8:30. So we have about 33 more minutes to go. It does include a good chunk of Johnson, a good chunk of Logan County, but I'll tell you, the worst is likely now moving into Pope and Yell counties.
All right, thanks, Scott. It's been a interesting setup where, like even Scott mentioned, right now we do still have that severe thunderstorm warning just for this gust front. Even though it's not producing a lot of the lightning and the rain, and it's really just the winds, if the National Weather Service is saying that this is still producing winds capable for a severe thunderstorm warning, I want to take a closer look. This is moving just south of Mansfield. Hartford, you're coming up next, and then eventually, if it continues its severity of a severe thunderstorm warning, we could have some really strong winds coming into the Scott County area, Heavener, Poteau, Scott County for Waldron and Parks. Hopefully this gust front really starts to fall apart and we can stop having the severity of those strong winds associated with it right now. But until the National Weather Service cancels that warning and says, hey, those winds are not up to that 60-mile-an-hour threshold, we're still going to keep you updated on where those winds are coming from, even though you're not getting any of the rain associated with it, which right now, even though we don't want the storms, the rain can't hurt to get that as well. Where we do see the healthiest part of this cell is still where that warning is. That was issued until 8:30. That's still 32 minutes from now, so we're going to stick with it and see where the strongest portion of the cell is going to be all night long. The strong winds have been our main concern, and right now, if you live in the Delaware area, Russellville, Shoal Creek, that is a very, very bright return that I'm seeing right now. We are bouncing in between radar sites, but both are saying that some really damaging wind is coming just south of I-40, Russellville area. You got family, you got friends, or you're watching us from that area, Lake Dardanelle as well. That's some really strong returns. I'm going to try to see if we can get some numbers associated with that. Let's see here. That is for, let's see, 16. Obviously, I think we're struggling right now with the data because we're bouncing between radar sites, but we're getting some new information out of that warning. So I want to go ahead and pop that up and see if we're getting it, because it looks like the hail may be ticking up just a bit, or they're actually trimming down. Like we mentioned earlier, that warning that was for Johnson County and into Franklin County still, they went and go ahead and let that warning expire. That was set for 8 o'clock, so we're right on the dot there. So now we're just left with one warning left, and the strongest portion of that cell is outside of our viewing area, right on the county line, really, between Logan County and Pope County is where we're seeing that strongest wind come back, and they're continuing to update this warning. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce over, not from our Tulsa chat, but from the Little Rock chat to see what is the latest information going on. That they're upgrading that to 70 miles an hour. That's where the wind is right there. You know, someone on the county line in the Delaware area, Dardanelle area, Russellville area, that is now upgraded to anywhere between 50 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts. Similar returns from what we saw earlier. Now this is moving off towards the east. Eventually our sister station out of Little Rock is going to be taking this over, but we're still right on that county line for Logan County. I'm going to zoom in really close here. If you live anywhere on 22, that color change is us bouncing between our radar sites. So we're going to stick with this site right here and zoom in pretty close. That would be Delaware Bay Road, and then State Highway 393. Really, 22 is the main concern there. Delaware going into Dardanelle area, and that's where that was just upgraded for that 70, potentially up to 70 mile an hour winds. So starting to recycle now, starting to see some of those stronger winds pulse back up out of this cell. For the last hour or so, we've been saying how the western side of the cell is really starting to come down with its returns, and it's this eastern side that was giving more of the stronger winds and the frequent lightning. That still holds true right now, with that western side really falling apart, where we no longer have that warning we no longer have that warning in southern Sebastian County. That gust front warning that we were talking about, that has since been allowed to expire as well. So now we just have this warning that's in parts of Johnson and Logan County. And eventually the next step that we're going to take is that they're going to trim this polygon down eventually. We're going to stick with it until they do. But a majority of this cell is outside of, the strongest winds is outside of Logan and Johnson County. Yes, the polygon is still drawn within the county lines, but the strongest portion of the cell is pushing towards the east and towards the southeast. So let's take a look at hail real quick and see where that hail core is strongest. Right on that county line right there, Delaware area, just south of I-40, London, in Knoxville area, starting to see some of those larger hail returns coming out as well, also associated with where the strongest winds are as well. That would make sense for us on our side of things. Right along I-40 as well, I think I'm going to try to get a camera down that direction and see. It's dark. You're not going to see much. But this is going to take a look over the bridge. And let's go ahead and pull that up. This is just outside of, that's a good look now. That's from Mercy Fort Smith. If we look off towards Delaware now, Knoxville area, this is what it's looking like right now. So a lot of lightning in and around the area. Folks still driving out there over the bridge, but this is where that strongest cell is right now. I'm trying to see if we can see some of those treetops. More than likely, it's a very fuzzy photo that we have right now, but that's where our strongest winds are right now. That's why the National Weather Service upgraded that from that 60 up to 70 mile an hour range. We go ahead and take another look at radar. I'm going to get one last look at that wind return before I go ahead and send it back over to Chief Meteorologist Scott Covert. If we take a look at the velocity, this is similar to returns that we saw earlier. Russellville area, Delaware, just south of Shoal Creek, where you see almost that blue return. Wind gusts potentially anywhere between 60 up to 70 mile per hour wind gusts.
Yeah, that's definitely that gust front moving out of the storm. The core of those winds, right there in blue, moving just to the south of. All right, folks, that's definitely exactly as Steven said. That's going to be some pretty intense winds. In fact, what I'd like to do is take a sample. I mean, this is 72 mile per hour winds. We're talking this is south of Russellville, getting close to Dardanelle. This is outside of our viewing area, but in the event that anyone's watching in Dardanelle or Russellville, I'm a proud Arkansas Tech Wonder Boy. I want you to be safe, okay? I'd probably move away from the windows. There's some intense winds. Radar estimates 76 mile per hour winds potentially out of that thunderstorm, in addition to the hail risk. I'll tell you the wind, though, the wind is going to be the most concerning aspect to me. You can look at it from the Fort Smith radar. The problem is this area is kind of in between our Fort Smith and Little Rock radars, and we're looking kind of higher up in the sky. If we were closer, we'd be looking a little bit lower. It is what it is. We have the two radars to deal with, and they're both telling us, at least at the higher level, we're seeing some pretty strong winds. 70 mile per hour winds, I think, is going to be most common. Where's this storm going? Let's put this into motion. And once this warning is expires for Logan and Johnson, which I think is going to be soon, let's see when it expires. Expires at 8:30, which I think they're going to trim Logan and Johnson out a little bit early, and you can see why. The core of the storm is actually moved into Pope and Yell. We're on the backside. Sure, there's some rain. Sure, there's a little bit of lightning and thunder, but the worst of which has now pushed into into Pope and Yell counties. So while I can't give you the all clear technically, Johnson and Logan, I'll tell you, I think we're okay. What's happened is probably not going to get worse with this storm. I think the worst is past to your east. You might give it just a few minutes to let that lightning come down before you go out and assess the damage. There's a lot of lightning, pretty electric thunderstorm, no question about it. We'll put a track on this. Looks like Weather Service put a new warning out further into parts of central Arkansas. First, we'll start in northwest Arkansas. Got some folks watching. We're good. We're clear for the time being. No severe thunderstorms. At the moment, it's just this one cell that, gosh, has been moving so quickly now into the River Valley and pushing into central Arkansas. Starting to get warnings issued as far southeast as Conway. So, boy, that storm causing some issues for a lot of folks out there this evening. We'll take a closer look. I told you I had to put a timeline on it, and I didn't do it. Let's do it now. So still moving at 40 miles an hour. 45. So that put the Petit Jean State Park, 816, Bigelow, 840, so to speak. That's well far out of our area, but just to give you a general idea of how things are going. I think we're almost done with this event here in parts of Johnson and Logan County. We are just a matter of minutes from the worst of that storm being entirely out. Rain, in fact, is probably going to slowly come to an end here real soon. At that point, the Weather Service probably updates their warning and allows Johnson and Logan County to be warning free for the time being. And this is going to be squarely a central Arkansas issue probably for the next few hours. If you know anyone traveling I-40 between Clarksville and Little Rock, terrible not to do it. That storm's pretty much hugging I-40 and on the current path looks to continue doing so over the next little bit. Some damage reports, power lines down in Lavaca. Got that report from a ham radio operator. Thank you so much. In Vesta, tree down over Shaver Road. Let's see, what else do we got here? Those are the only two warnings to pass along at this moment. We bring Stephen Elmore back in.
All right, yeah, so we're still just watching this one cell right now. Yes, it has been moving very quickly, pretty consistently around 40 to 45 miles per hour. It's been tracking. It tracked right down I-49, and then it really took an easterly turn and tracked along just north of I-40 as well. Johnson County has, by the time this is all said and done, more than likely going to see the highest rainfall total amounts, more than likely have some isolated flooding going on there as well. But we're almost done with the wind and hail threat when it comes to us. Again, our sister station out of Little Rock, you got friends, you got family further down the line across I-40 where it seems to be following. They're going to go ahead and take that over. We're just going to stick with you until the warning for Johnson and Logan County is cleared so we can give you the all clear out of northwest Arkansas and the River Valley when it comes to these storms. Here, folks who are still watching us now wondering, well, what's the rest of the night look like for us? I want to give you a wide look of what's coming behind it, and you're not going to see much. We have some activity, some showers in the Kansas City area, but nothing getting picked up on the Springfield radar site. Once we're done with this cell, we're done for this evening. Even though that watch goes out until 10 p.m., we should be good throughout the rest of the evening. We'll still monitor to see if we have some cells start to bubble up once again, but it's late at night, and this cell used up a lot of energy, folks. We had winds peaking up anywhere between 60, 70 miles an hour plus at some times. That's going to use a lot of that energy in that area, and it cut right through northwest Arkansas, portions of the River Valley as well, to the point where now, unfortunately, we have a lot of those damage reports coming back, and we are just almost out of the woods for that once we get into Johnson, Logan County down the line. I want to go back and zoom back in and where those strongest winds are going to be. That's going to be right on the county line. Russellville area is more than likely where that velocity site is going to pull up greatest, and that's why that warning is still there. They're more than likely going to issue that warning continuing just south of the Morrilton area, but just south of Russellville, which is a good sign, avoids the university, but we're still seeing some very strong returns coming just outside of our viewing area, and they're more than likely going to go ahead and reissue that warning. We're just going to hang on here until the warning has been trimmed out of Logan and Johnson County. So let's go ahead and pull up sweeping radar and see what's left inside those warning polygons. And it's not much. We have a few lightning strikes here and there, but Shoal Creek, you're still seeing maybe some rain. It's probably come down significantly just here in the last couple of minutes. In the Knoxville area, you're starting to see that rain come down ever so slightly as well. And then for the most part, it's just those scattered showers in and around Johnson County. That green return, obviously, you've been watching us for a long time. You know that it's very light rain. It's not much to talk about. It's definitely nowhere close to the severe limit. And if anything, if we follow the county lines of where the heaviest rain is, mostly we're seeing a lot of those green returns. Delaware is still where we're seeing a few of those frequent lightning strikes and also some of that heavier rain. We just got to wait to see what the National Weather Service out of Little Rock wants to do when it comes to this polygon. Eventually, though, they're going to extend that further into central Arkansas. So if you have friends, family in Atkins, Russellville area, you're going to want to head and give them a text and say, hey, we just got all this damage from this cell. This could be down the line for you coming up very shortly. Let's take a look DMA wide, show you kind of what's going on here. Showers across northern Franklin County, northern Crawford County, southern Johnson, southern Madison, and then really a lot of those showers in and around the county lines, the eastern portion of those county lines for Johnson and Logan County. Southern River Valley, LaFleur, Scott County, Sebastian County, Sequoia County, been somewhat quiet this evening outside of that rare gust front warning that we had. Personally, I never would have thought I would have ever seen that. The warning that we had earlier that was in southern Sebastian County, that was only issued not because of the rain, the lightning, the hail, but only because of the wind that was gusting out from the cell. The cell was further off towards the east. The winds that were coming out of that cell, though, were still producing up enough to produce that severe thunderstorm warning. If you saw what just happened there on that screen, that was a new warning that was issued for the Little Rock Metro. Again, our sister station THV 11 will be taking care of those severe storms further out towards central Arkansas. One thing that I just did get notified of, though, is that severe thunderstorm watch. You see, a majority of it is canceled. It was canceled from the National Weather Service out of Tulsa. All their counties canceled the watch early. It was supposed to go till 10 p.m. We sit here at 8:15. Good news is nothing's coming behind this. This one cell was the only cell that we had to worry about tonight, and unfortunately it caused a lot of damage, especially in Franklin County. Where we don't see the watch canceled just yet is Johnson, Logan, and Scott County. Now I'll tell you, even though it may not necessarily be as strong as a storm right now as we had earlier in those counties, what's happening there is that those counties are based out of the National Weather Service, out of Little Rock. They've got their hands full right now. They're going to trim the watch down when they get a chance to, but I think for a majority of us in Johnson, Logan, Scott County, we're mostly in the clear. We just still have that watch still scheduled until 10 p.m. right now. We'll see if it survives that long. I'll tell you, I don't believe it will. let's go ahead and look at sweeping radar to see if there's any signs of it showing it. I really don't think Scott County has any reason to be concerned right now. We're still going to monitor things, but there's a few showers, might be a little breezy, but outside of that, not much to worry about. Logan County, still right along that county line, and there is some heavier downpours, a few lightning strikes here and there, but for the most part, we're done as well. Johnson County, while nothing is severe right now, it's just the rainfall that is the big issue right now. And we've picked up a lot of it driving around. If there was any storm damage that we did have, and I know that there was, driving around, seeing the damage might not be great in and around Johnson County because of those low-lying areas, how much rain we picked up. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, actually. This, again, what I'm about to show you is going to be just an estimation of what we potentially picked up, but it'll give us a good idea of who saw the heaviest rainfall. So this is rainfall estimated rates of who got the heaviest rain. And if we go ahead and click on these areas, we can see how much rain picked up. And again, this cell came in a little close to 6 o'clock. This is about 2 hours where we had this cell moving very quickly. It's pretty much sustained its speed around 40 to 45 miles per hour. So just south of Fayetteville, close to 1.5 inches of rain right on the Johnson County line, though, where we start to see those yellow returns, close to about 2 inches of rain. And that was my fear, is that eastern and northern Johnson County is where we had that significant rainfall, where that cell kind of just sat there and dumped a lot of water in a short amount of time. Probably saw that within an hour or an hour and a half of all that rainfall. So if you know those low-lying areas, more than likely going to have some issues with some minor flooding this evening. We'll see if the National Weather Service gives us any guidance out of that. So let's go ahead and turn on sweeping radar again, and I'll turn off the observed precipitation, and we'll take another look at what's going on here. So again, for the most part, and I think we're going to really try to wrap things up here very shortly. While we still do have that severe warning in Logan and in Johnson County, a majority of the storm has pushed off towards the southeast, to the point where some of the polygon that you see still in Logan County and still in Johnson County, it may not even be raining there anymore. But again, they're going to either trim it or they're going to allow it to survive its time all the way out until 8:30. Trying to get some information here as we continue to get those storm reports out of Franklin County. Obviously, we've been talking a lot, trying to get reports from all over Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. Our chief meteorologist, Scott Covert, was making phone calls to emergency managers across the areas that got hit the hardest, so we can get information that's on the ground. We're here. We're trying to monitor the storms on radar and what we see on our end, but also then once we have the ground truth of what actually happened there when it comes to the damage, that's when we can go back and look at our data and look at our radar and say, hey, this is when it really pulsed up. When we were talking about this area, that's why we have X damage here right now. And they went and go ahead and they trimmed down that warning outside of Logan and Johnson County. So let's go ahead and take DMA wide. We are warning free across Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. Still some very strong storms moving into the Little Rock area now. But as for us, just a few showers here and there across Franklin and Johnson County, very light showers, but we are warning free, and I am not expecting any more warnings throughout the rest of the night tonight. Here's what we'll tell you, though. If we do start to see something pulse back up, which it's very unlikely that we will, but if we do, we'll definitely hop back on here. We'll give you the latest information that we need to give you. As of right now, though, we're going to go ahead and collect ourselves, start to pull in some of that data that we were talking about, pull in with those storm reports and try to see which areas got hit the hardest. But again, we are warning free across Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. That severe thunderstorm watch continues across Johnson, Logan, and Scott counties for now. I do believe, though, it will be canceled very shortly. Thank you for trusting us this evening. For right now, I'm 5 News meteorologist Stephen Elmore.